Here goes nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the sixth rendition of PvMer Spotlight. And today, we're joined with a man who I believe deserves a lot more recognition for some of the things that he has done. He's made guides, he's helped mentor and leader raids. The man, the myth, the legend, ReynoldsWrap.
Hello. Nice to see you guys.
Alright, so, Mr. Reynolds, would you like to give a brief introduction of who you are?
So I'm a RuneScape player who's been playing since, I suppose, since I was like 6, to be honest. But when I got back into old school RuneScape during college, I got back into RuneScape, and I think right now most people know me in RuneScape as someone who generally offers some lesser known guides. I don't really aim for the sweat PVM like speedrunners though, although I do aim for an audience I would think is like a little bit like a level below that for like chill players who want to still have some kind of efficiency, don't roll out efficiency. And I make some guides, for skilling as well. Some thieving guides out of DriftNet guide, which is a little outdated, but it is what it is. Then, yeah.
Yeah, I remember I saw that thieving guide, the one at Elves, and I was like, oh shit, that actually gives you so much money. I didn't expect it to give you a lot of money in XP too.
It's been a while. I think thieving right now is not very profitable. A lot of people are losing hype for like elves and stuff too, and like not elves, just doing content, so no one really cares about getting the supply income and stuff like that. Blood shards are low, enhanced crystal seeds are low, all that stuff.
All right. So, what sorts of content do you delve into on old school RuneScape?
After I maxed, I would say 80% of it was just raiding for, money good, purple, dopamine. And then after that, when I made enough money to not really care too much about the wipe cost, and I stopped caring about the gear grind, although I care about the gear grind when a new raid comes out because I can't afford it sometimes. I started going into mentoring because I wanted to try to grow the community a little bit. When I first started getting into TOB, that was, in my opinion, the most fun I've ever had on RuneScape because I've had a lot of trial and error. The wipe made it more intense of a raid, although, of course, it's not very accessible. And then you were able to form a connection with the raiders that you're playing with, whether you're carrying them, whether they're carrying you, whether you guys are showing each other new tech. I think that was like the most fun I've ever had on RuneScape. So when I got into mentoring, I think I was trying to grow a community who can get into TOB. And I think that's what most people know me from, besides my skilling guides, of course.
Speaking of mentoring, how about we expand on that a bit more? So, as you all know, or I used to be in lead raids as well as a mentor, but our good friend Reynold here did a lot to help out Todd mentoring. So please tell me about your contributions as a lead raids mentor, as well as maybe some other contributions, like such in a social clan space, because I remember you helped in a social clan. I was in that for a little bit. So.
So I first got into lead raids, I would say probably during Chambers, a little bit after release. I was a very shy person going to RuneScape. To be fair, in RuneScape 2, I didn't even have a fire cape. I was so nervous. I was so bad at the game. And going into old school, nothing much changed. The only thing is somehow I was able to kill Zoro like 1,000 times before I even got my fire cape. And then when Chambers released, I was really nervous about that stuff. I thought I would be weighing teams down and stuff. So I tried to go into solo after watching Wooks and being inspired by him. So when I finally got the courage to go graduate from solos into doing some teams to see what that's like, I got into Weedo raids because I didn't know how else to meet anybody. I met a lot of friends on Weedo raids, like some OGs like Ego. He's one of the people that got me into Chambers, and he kind of like mentored me a little bit more on the efficiency stuff, not like as a formal mentor or anything like that. And I had a blast doing it. I took that kind of fun that I thought would be applicable to other people learning TOB, and I wanted to get them into the mix. TOB at the time, I think, was maybe still a little bit fresh, so not many people mentored it, and not many people wanted to mentor it because, to be fair, Scythe was like 2.8 bill. Everyone's scared about splitting and stuff like that with newbies, and then the guys were also, not to hate on anybody that, of course, made them at the time, it was new. They were getting outdated every week, every 2 weeks. Metas were changing. Jax was changing things, dropping scales down, and stuff like that. So that's how I kind of got into We Do Raids. And when TOB released, they actually made a We Do Raids 2. I
Oh
don't know if
yeah,
anybody remembers
I
that.
know that because I helped with the graphics for it.
I love that place, I'll be honest. Although it slowly died off, and
Yeah.
because I mean, TOB is not accessible. So, less people want to do it. So I was like, let me get active in this place. It looks like it's a little dead right now of mentoring. People are only carrying friends and stuff. So I was like, let's help out the public a little bit. I don't need the money anymore. I got very lucky with splits, so I don't need any more. And that was pretty much it. That's how I got into mentoring. Took mostly a lot of friends to start with, and then eventually I started developing like what is the proper shot call based on what experience they have, what are the most dangerous moves and I think or mechanics in TOB that I think should be called out first. So I started making lists. I saw the layouts that people did for chambers mentoring, like making an Olm speech, for example, before you get into the room. And I kind of stole that a little bit, and I was like, where should I make my speech? Um, when should I call things out mid raid? What times are appropriate to call things out? Because there's a lot of mechanics going on. So I think that's what I was doing for a lot of the time outside of actual mentoring, was just trying to set up efficiency for people doing it in the future. That Besides that, it wasn't really much. I was just getting to know the people who wanted to get into Tub. And then that's where I slowly met a lot of people. We, went around and discussed things. Because I wasn't the only one that did it, of course. So
Oh
we would
yeah.
discuss like, is 2+2 better? How do you think about carrying 1+3s with the other mentors? Do you think it's appropriate for us to not to do all the freezing for them in Maiden? Should we not freeze for them? And so there's always a lot of like small things with TOB. And I really like that about TOB, that there were so many different things you could do, not only for the raid for efficiency, but also on the mentoring side. You can decide how to carry someone or how not to carry someone so they can develop and grow as a player.
Yeah. I remember when I was trying to get into top mentoring, and that was it was not easy trying to learn the ways of top mentoring at all. I remember Sniper was so hard on my ass.
I love Snipe.
Yeah. Shout out to
Can I
Sniper.
can I give him a small flame? But I know he doesn't do this anymore. But
Go for it.
hold on, I need to. Okay. So when Sniper was teaching with us, there was one time where we were carrying a lot of people, or it might have been actually a group raid, not a mentor raid. And there was actually a time where our Nilos was just really slow, and we were playing well, and I was watching all of us, and I was like, there's nothing that we're doing particularly wrong. I wonder why they're about 20 seconds slower than usual. And then Sniper chimes in with, oh, it might be the fact that I'm using Eagle Eye. I was like, you're using what? Instead of Rigger. That was pretty funny. Now I learned that was a very important call out to make for newbies, to make sure they're using the best offensive prayer.
Yeah, you know what? That's completely fair.
It's fine. He stopped doing that like 2 raids later.
All right. We could probably move on a bit and talk a little bit more about your contributions in the social clan space now.
Social clans. So I actually never was into a clan thing until a little bit after the mentoring. I initially joined a clan called Petscape, and my goal was, I was kind of like doing a mix between tobbing myself for the collection log and for fun, for money, and then mentoring, and then getting into Petscape and pet hunting. And although I was initially pet hunting, I decided, these guys seem to have the gear. Pet hunters generally have like good money, and they'll be able to get into Tob through the requirements. So I wanted to kind of do a bridge where I would be pet hunting on the side, I would be mentoring people of Petscape, and then eventually that's where I met JC, who brought me into Midnight after I ended up leaving them for unrelated reasons, just because I wanted to join Midnight instead. I was kind of doing like a mix, doing pet hunting, mentoring, and I was trying to mostly make my friends through Tob, just because I found it most fun to interact with people through TOB rather than the other raids. I personally don't enjoy Chambers group raid as much. I think
Yeah.
it's not bad. I still have done a lot of them, like 800 of them. I just don't find it as much fun as TOB. As at least on the beginner mentoring level.
Oh,
Although
yeah, that's understandable.
we all know that teaching people in chambers is a little bit easier, although you do have to in my opinion, do a lot more talking before the room
Oh,
starts.
oh yeah, for
Oh
sure.
boy.
I feel like Top is a bit more with callouts and not as long speeches, and then Chambers, it's literally you have this giant 20-page document. You have to go over all the stuff, go in, and even with all that information, it's like information overload. So it's like trying to condense all of it. Like
Yeah.
you gotta do a bunch of runs for stuff to stick. It's just how it is. But it was
But
fun.
I didn't ever really try to recruit people into any particular clan. I was just always there. People, they don't have to be in the clan for me to help them. If my friends there say they're trusted and they want to learn Tob, I'll hook them up. I'll help them out and learn Tob. And I think that's what connects a lot of people is when you start to actually get to people to know them in game, not just as a name, but as someone you're raiding with, as someone who's helping you learn, and then eventually becoming someone you can do splits with and regular raids with.
Yeah. I was really curious about that just because, like, interactions in social clan space, because before I joined Oblivion a long time ago, I used to help run a clan that I joined and then slowly rose up the ranks and then ended up as one of the leaders and one of the oldest members for a long time. And I did my best to try to get people to do chambers. Tob came around, and that was a little bit chaotic and stressful. I'm not gonna lie, I felt like I ripped my hair out a couple of times trying to teach Tob just because it wasn't easy. And that was also more motivation for me to try to get into Tob mentoring and weed raids because I wanted to get better at it. So that's what I did. That was my main motivation in doing it, just so I could start improving in that regard, and then bring that back to the clan and like teach them ropes without wiping and people being sad, because wiping is not fun.
No, and it feels really stressful on the learner. I had to learn that you do have to like soften the blows for them, so that if they do make a major mistake, they don't have to feel bad about it. They're human.
Yeah.
It happens. Someone flies you like 20 times a blow. It is what it is.
But we got Phoenix.
Yeah, we're all here. We're all here to have a good time. We're not here to flame anybody who's like newbie at it, even if they are extra newbie at it.
I mean, it's just how it is. It comes with time. Some people, it might take them a little bit more time, but as long as they have the drive and the motivation to do it, I'm always happy to try to bring people, especially to stuff like CM5s where there isn't too many resources or opportunities. But mentoring is hog.
Yeah, I can't do it. I don't have the patience I had about 2 years, as much patience as I had 2 years ago. So that's why I ended up retiring as a top mentor. I started realizing I can't. I don't have as much patience as I used to about 2-3 years ago. So I decided not to be toxic, just end it on a good note.
You know what?
Stop.
That's completely fine. Have you played League of Legends in your life by chance?
Yes, I actually still play, not by myself, but whenever my friends want to play, I play with them. And I have also had through my lapses of massive toxicity and realizing, look, I gotta not do that. Be a better person.
You hear that,
League
boys?
of Legends changes you.
League of Legends changes you. Do not get sucked in. That is the point I'm getting across.
It's too late. I've been playing since season 2. I play most I would say at least 50% of the clashes that come out still. Those are still very fun.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we move on to the next question?
Yes.
So, we all love and or hate a boss that they call Nightmare, the old hag lady whose drop rates suck. But I remember you did put out some resources. Hell, you even ran a server to get people together and put out some like somewhat max abstracts for Nightmare, because I was a part of that. I did some runs. You eventually did close it down, but I wanted to hear your thoughts on Nightmare as a boss, as well as, your contributions to getting a community together, as well as the eventual closure of said server.
Okay, so Nightmare is, as it sounds, a complete nightmare of a boss in terms of drop rate. It's terrible. People, although yes, I am happy with the idea of, yeah, you can go in and then a drop can be massive and you can be really hyped up. It's too much to the, if you've ever seen some people's collection logs where they go like 4,000 dry, like Lake, for example, it is not a fun time. You don't even look forward to it after a certain amount of time. The hype, and the problem is because the hype and the money from the from the drops is tied to the drop rate, as the money goes down, you feel more trapped. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Or if it goes up, it's like I have to keep doing it, even if you don't enjoy the boss anymore. You can't take a break when you want to. You can't kill the boss at
Yeah.
your own pace. And on that note, Nightmare on release was extremely punishing. I'm happy they made some changes. Like, if you've ever did Nightmare on the first week of release, whenever it charged at you, it was funny as hell in a mass world. You would see like tens
I
of bones
loved
every
it,
time it does that
dude.
attack. It was so fun.
Oh.
But the thing is, the way they scaled Nightmare was it discouraged massing. There was no kind of split system. I know I'm not personally saying we should do loot share or anything like that or coin share, but when the drop rates are so low, people will fall off like flies. They don't want to do the boss anymore. I just wanted to bring the resource for the mechanics of the boss so people can get into killing it faster with a small group. Because, in my opinion, the best efficiency for Nightmare drop rate wise was like either you duoed or you did like up to 4 mans. You don't really want to do more because also it takes a bajillion years for the boss to spawn, which when you account for that extra 30 seconds you have to wait actually decreases team efficiency a lot. I dislike that a lot. What else about it? When I made the server, I basically wanted to say I wanted it to lay out in a way that was like, oh, these are Nightmare's mechanics. Then you have people who read through that stuff. It's kind of like the wiki a little bit, but you can just click through the channels and see which mechanics and how to deal with them, and how to efficiently deal with them was what I wanted to do. But thing is, no one wanted to do Nightmare, so I was discouraged personally. I didn't really care about it anymore because I mean I'm just doing it solo for the heck of it. I wasn't really interested in creating an LFT group too much if it wasn't going to be active anyway.
Yeah.
But I actually did end up getting a lot of members. That server ended up having over 700 members at one point, but the LFT channel was extremely dead. You would see one post every like 2 days. It's like, and you don't even know if they got replied to. Some people get DM'd, right? Like, yeah, I'm down to Nightmare or whatever, but there's no point really mentoring Nightmare because it wasn't something that took more than really 5-10 minutes to teach. It was mostly practice at that point.
Yeah.
Like the only call I had to do was your prayers are being shuffled, or I called brain check. But
Oh gosh. That one was the real test to see who's the smooth brain and who wasn't.
no, it was difficult, especially when it changed it back as you're getting meleeed. Those are
Yeah.
fun times.
Oh, that is misery.
Some new traps. So after I decided everyone already knew how to do Nightmare. Anybody that wants to get into Nightmare has the guides. It wasn't really difficult. Phosani's wasn't out, of course, and I ended up closing the Nightmare server before Phosani's release.
Yeah. I remember I saw it was closed and I was like, that was a little sad, but at the same time, it makes complete sense because it isn't the most enjoyable content. I know I would do it with friends, and it's just like when you go so dry, as you said it feels terrible. And I did feel stuck because I spent hours on hours, so I'm like coping that this is gonna be the trip. We get a
I would
drop.
keep telling my friends, I'm like, today we get the dual harmonized. We both walk out of here a 1.4 bill. Theoretically, this boss makes 27 mil an hour or what? All lies. Nothing
Cope.
happens.
Cope boss. It's actually Cope boss.
I hated it.
Now, regarding drops though, would you think a solution would be similar to, let's say, Corporal Beast? Because the nice thing about Corp is, yes, the sigils are the big money drop, but there are some, of course, smaller drops that do add up. And then you also have the Bolt drops, which are kind of like those mid breaking points that are actually kind of worth a bit. So it feels a little bit rewarding, and you're kind of happy when you see that drop.
Yeah, they should. I think you're completely right. They should give you a little small trickle, something, just a little bit to make you keep going, to make it feel like you're not completely wasting your time.
Yeah.
When they give you 21 bass, that's more of a slap than nothing. I'd rather get nothing. Please don't give me that ever again. The unnoted potions, it's like, okay, I understand you want me to stay in there longer. Is it so much harder to drop, let's say, 4 unnoted sand fuse and then like 20 noted prayer potions? Just that would be a small addition. I would rather see that. They could have a small quantity of unnoted, but there's no point to have 18 unnoted sand fuse. I'm not, and there are 3 dose too. Like, as a further insult, am I supposed to start decanting these guys? I have to start changing my rune light settings to like get these sand fuse in my inventory before I leave, and then I don't want to come back after that. It's like, what
100%.
else? And also the drops suck. Each of the sigils are far better than anything other. The Inquisitor armor has a niche at least, and chambers, especially CM chambers.
Yeah.
But it still should be, in my opinion, better. Speaking of that, have you ever seen the fact that they're lowering the pulls back to down to 70%? There is a chance Inquisitor gets buffed. I believe back then the negatives did pass above 70, if I recall correctly. That would be something I'm okay with seeing, but I think it needs a little bit better balance changes to make the drops better.
That would help in some departments because some people do use Scythe with it. But with Torva being a thing, if you're going to be siphoning, you might as well use Torva.
Yeah, it's kind of like a dead end here because you're gonna make it stronger than Torva. And drop rate wise, it deserves it, but then again, like, are you gonna power creep something you already made 10 months ago? Because that's when X came out, right? 10 months ago.
Would a solution be maybe increasing the accuracy of crush weapon special attacks on top of it? So like Dragon Mace, Dragon Warhammer, and I don't know, Barrel Chest Anchor or something.
Realistically, I think it would be cool because it's a 3-item set. And in terms of a PKing balance, by the way, you shouldn't ask me for anything PKing balance was. I don't know anything about PKing, but I want to say it. If you could have PKers realistically actually take a full Inquisitor set, that could be good for the economy, because then they're 3 out of 4 items on the risk, right?
Yeah.
But then we're going to get the rest, so. Because they can just 3-item the Inquisitor and never skull, which is annoying. And then nobody wants to like skull with Inquisitor. That's nonsense. It's scary.
That's true. Maybe, I don't know how they'd code it, but they could maybe make it just for PvM, but then people would be like, why only the PvMers get this?
Exactly, yeah. No one likes that stuff. Hammer-wise, I would be kind of happy with that, but I mean, the problem is the boss has been out so long, it's not like, I would personally have preferred if Inquisitor wasn't in the game to start with, and they would make a better way to buff crush weapons. Maybe like a buff to the Tyrannical ring by a massive amount, or like an addition to one of the rings. That way it's not tied to the armor, because right now we feel tied to the Inquisitor armor. Nobody wants to wear it with Torva. Is 3 slots worth it, that extra accuracy of Dragon Warhammer? At some point, people believed that for Tob, where they were bringing Inquisitor, but then, of course, they don't do that anymore. No one brings Inquisitor to Tob.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
not that I know of.
For solo chambers, people bring both Torva and Ink, but I think for Tob, because of how space is now, and then you have people bringing Phoenix when they're doing speeds, they just don't bother. And now there's a spec ring, so if people really cared that much, they'd probably just camp bat when they miss specs just to get their spec back up and then rehammer.
Yeah. I don't think it would be the best solution. Also, I'm a huge propaganda like proprietor of Din's Bulwark. It's not even good with Inquisitor, which is hilarious because there's no defense. So I don't know. I don't think the crush would be an answer. The crush spec accuracy or damage or whatever it was.
That's fair. Alright, so we did talk about Nightmare, but we do have that one update that came out, which was Hard Mode Nightmare, aka Phosani. So would you like to talk about your thoughts regarding Phosani?
I think Phosani's as a fight is far better, especially for solo players, of course. That's what it's designed for. You don't have to sit there hitting the same phase for like 5 minutes each. I don't particularly think the second or the third phase of Phosani's has any real purpose. I think it would be better to just skip that part, go for like one. How many phases is it? 4 right now? Just do 3 phases, or if it's 3 phases, do 2, however you want to find that.
Yeah.
I would prefer it that way. I do like the fact that there's no RNG, well, not real any RNG with Phosani's unless you're speedrunning. It's just things are guaranteed to die. You're guaranteed to kill the parasite. You're guaranteed to kill the husk. I'm very happy about that. I am not happy about the sleepy tablet drop rate. I didn't go particularly dry for it, but I know so many friends who did, and I feel so bad because they're just sitting there running. They created the boss as an answer to, you know what, the idea that you should run to the boss is bad. Let's introduce the sleepy tablet. But then why would you make the sleepy tablet so rare, in my opinion?
Was it 1 in 100 or 1 in 200? I can't remember the rate off the top of my head.
Let me look it up. I think it was 1 in 100, but it could get the Vorkath head treatment, which a lot of people suggest on Reddit. Although
I think it's also the same with Chambers' Zerg tablet, because I think you're guaranteed to get it at 50kc or something.
It's 1 in 100. Oh, it's a lot worse than I thought. It was 1 in 50, to be honest.
Dude, I think it took me like 200-ish KC or something to get mine. I was in misery. I hated it. I hated every second. Every time I looked on the ground, I didn't care for drops. I just wanted that tablet. Did not get until 200 KC. And at that point, I was done with the boss. Because I already had the pet. I already had the egg. There's no reason for me to do it. Just want the tablet in case it pops up on a bingo board or something.
Theoretically, if you're very good at Phosanis, you can stay in there for like 5-7 kill trips. I have a video of me staying there for like 7 kills, but people learning it are not going to be doing 5-7 kill trips. They're going to be doing like either a 1 kill trip or they're going to be doing like 3-4 max. And the fact that you have to spend an extra 2 minutes per trip, if you're doing 1 kill trips, that's like an extra 100 minutes. No, to be honest, probably like 200 minutes because you're sitting there at the bank contemplating if you want to go back. It's just a complete waste of time. I don't think it's... Drops have not been addressed, in my opinion, through Phosanis, which is the major issue. I would honestly be okay with them scaling Phosani's HP up if they allow you to do it with teams. I don't see any particular mechanics that are like not team friendly other than the grasping claws or the black pools. I think they should... That's a very small adjustment you can make to scale for teams. You can make it like instead of a 5x5, you can make it so like it just spawns underneath you or like a 3x3 underneath you. I think Phosanis could be reintroduced back as a team boss with some scaling because it is a fun fight.
Yeah, that was the one thing I was kind of sad about because I'm not really much of a solo player. I prefer doing stuff in teams. There is some content I do like that is solo, but not necessarily Phosani. I felt like it would have been more fun as like a team boss type thing.
Yeah. Like, let's say it's scaled up to 4. The flower quadrant, let's say each person was assigned a color for the flower quadrant, and then the flowers, everyone has to go into their own quadrant. If they don't go to their quadrant, they fly that entire quadrant. That could be like a small addition they could do to allow teams in there, and give some space to everyone if they don't want to fix the grasping claws or adjust it.
That's fair. I don't know. I'm not sure if they're going to be making any more changes to that content. And it sucks too because I think right now you really don't make that much money from that content at all.
No, it's really bad.
It's really bad.
That's why, in a sense, even though I want that pet, I've kind of just excluded Nightmare Phosanis from my mental space. It doesn't deserve to occupy enough more.
Yeah, because it's one of the big 4, I think, right? One of the big 4 pets to go for. I don't remember what they are off the top of my head, the longest grinds, but I think that's one of them.
Yeah, Bloodhounds, Nightmare. Well, I don't think Phosanis is too bad anymore. Actually, wait, is it?
It's like a 200 something hour pet, if I recall correctly, right?
200. Oh, 200 is not too bad, at least compared to Bloodhound. But Penance Queen is one of them, right? Was it?
I think Penance Queen's another one. Yeah, almost 1 too.
All right. Besides that, in terms of the mace, as someone who's gotten a mace on the floor and seen it, it looks really cool, but that thing needs a buff too, not just the Inquisitor set. And the harmonized that thing's terrible. Jagex needs to figure out something to do with it.
They've said like they thought of things or they might do something, but never anything. Nothing comes out of it. Right now, it is just an Ice Demon stick, and that's it. Because the shadow's in the game, so there's really no point of it when the shadow exists. That shit's just that mage weapon slaps.
Yeah. It's too tied to the Tome of Fire. That first needs to be the major thing. It needs to not be reliant on either standard or the Tome of Fire. In my opinion, it should not be relying on standard in general. I would be okay with it allowing you to swap, let's say, spellbooks infinitely, but not in combat. That could be a good way to slightly balance it for PvP. So you can swap spellbooks and choose what you want, but not in combat. So if you were like running around in chambers, you could still kind of use it as like a permanent 99 mage cape. That would be kind of nice, but I don't think that would be like the best solution. That's just something I made up like right now. So
yeah. Well, there was one idea I had a while ago if they really wanted to kind of add some value to it, because what it is it's a weapon that makes it where when you cast standard spells, it makes you cast it on 4 ticks instead of 5 ticks. So why not add a new standard spell that is really strong? It's not like on par, like where it's to the point it's like you can use Shadow or this, maybe like a little bit behind Shadow, but now you have a very strong magic option.
So someone like the auto attack for the shadow, but 4 tick, right? But
Something like that,
a
yeah.
little bit in between.
Maybe not like Storm of Armino, because Storm of Armino is broken, but something strong, and I think they could add like some magic scroll that you can unlock from a piece of content, and that might buff the harm or something.
I was actually thinking of I mean, I've been playing a lot of Terraria recently. I was thinking something like a Staff of Meteors would be cool.
Ah.
Where what was the idea exactly? So it was like you target a monster, and it does work on a tile system where it uses the middle tile or southwest tile, whichever you prefer. And then it would fire another projectile in a 3x3. It only hits one tile and it RNGs. So you can hit the same target twice. You can hit things around it, but it's going to be very RNG reliant to get good average DPS. Do I think it was a good idea? Probably not. It was a fun idea I made. Anything different than casting Fire Surge, in my opinion, is a good thing to start with.
That'd be an interesting weapon to see. Something like, as you said, that meteor thing. But the only problem with that is the amount of RNG, and this game is already an RNG game. Do we need
Yeah,
more RNG?
probably not. But I know people love RNG games during combat, like when the scythe hits big. That'd be
Oh,
nice.
whenever you do see those like max hit spots, you play with those on. It's like mint.
I think that would make it more satisfying to use in the harmonize. Also, why doesn't the thing light up when you use it? That'd be cool. Why doesn't the blue orb, glow blue? I don't know.
Oh,
Some
dude,
small things.
that would be cool. But
Just some small things to make it a little bit more enjoyable of a weapon to use too. Not just on
yeah.
the balance side.
But instead, we just have an Ice Demon stick. That's it. An
Yeah.
overpriced Ice Demon stick.
It's not even that good anymore in comparison to I think people shadowed Ice Demon now, right?
That is
Or
an
is it,
option in solos, but in teams, you still use the harm, and people
yeah,
also in
might as well.
solos still bring like if you're going for wreck, you bring the harm still.
Oh, they're still doing a spellbook swap, I assume.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's too good.
I don't know anything about chamber speedruns. I just go in and out. Too much.
All right, so is there anything else you want to say in regards to Phosani, or shall we move on to the next question?
It's the next one. I would have to put a lot more thought into how to balance the drops, and because you would also need it's something you have to balance the drops rates of, and also balance the drops. I would have to do like a very long discussion about how to balance it and put more thought into it than that.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, they could just do it like TOA and just have them flood into the game.
Oh boy. I do have a lot of thoughts about TOA though. Speaking of which, I'm ready for those.
We'll get to that soon. But
Yeah.
so
Okay.
I think I mentioned it earlier, like right at the start. He's someone who has made many guides, many educational guides. He commentates through his gameplay. So I kind of want to know, what was your motivation and your goal of putting out all these videos, and then we can probably look at a couple of them as well, like talk briefly about them.
So a lot of the guys I kind of made kind of as a passing thing while I was doing the content. So when I did the DriftNet content, that was actually while I was grinding for 99 hunter and fishing on my road to max. And that's where I discovered every time I get bored of a method, I'm like, what else is available? So at the time I was getting bored of barbarian fishing. No one wants to 3-tick barbarian fish. And I was like, what else is out there? Oh yeah, they created that fossil island thing. So that's when I discovered DriftNet. I never trust guides unless they're made by an absolute sweat lord usually. So when I saw that DriftNet was like 40k EXP fishing and like whatever hunter, I was like, there's no way to let me try it out myself first. And I saw it was over double of that. And so I made my guide because no one else had made a guide about DriftNet yet. Howled Sepulchre, I got a little bit of traction because I put out the DriftNet guides. They actually wanted me to make something for the Howled Sepulchre guide in the meantime during release just to get it out quickly.
Yeah.
So I just did that one. The thieving one, that's because I still want to grind my Rocky Pet, so I was just grinding good ways to get it while making hella money. So that's how I discovered elves. I was just browsing. If you guys haven't tried this, use Google search to find a timeline, to find the website, and somewhere there was some hidden comment in Reddit of using the elf arid hill for that specific thieving spot for elves, and that one was really good.
Huh.
That's how I made my guide. I saw that comment. I tried it out. Worked out really well. Timed it with A Kingdom Divided being released. to update the rates with Shadow Veil. So I wasn't gonna make that guide, but then when they released Shadow Veil, I was like, yeah, it's time. Besides, I just want to help out the community to find what's efficient. I'm sure a lot of people who are grinding either as mains or as Iron Man really appreciate the fact that there are good ways to get shards per hour or money for a low level main who doesn't have much experience in combat. Same thing for Alt Current.
And then you've also made those TOA walkthroughs as well, where you do it at like different raid levels because you want to help people break the bank and drop the prices of items even more.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you could talk a little bit more about that, especially because it seems like when it comes to monkey waves or baba waves, it seems like you have like a very like a systematic way of solving it as well as like the rest of the rooms.
TOA is very straightforward in the way that once you have done it efficiently, you can continue doing that exact same way. And then if you find any minor things that you can improve on, you can just keep that for all of your future runs. It doesn't change ever, actually. It's technically same thing for top besides, the RNG factor.
Yeah.
And when it comes to hitting and stuff and hammers. So TOA is pretty much the same thing where for now, at least, I think Bob is the most efficient way for making money because 118 combat versus 125 on assault, stuff like that. So the room order stays the same. I remember they hyped up Walk the Path, making it like, oh, you can change how you go. It doesn't change anything. I'm sorry, Jags, but Walk the Path hasn't changed anything of how I approach the raid. It's always the same order every time. I'm very upset about that still.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad. I was expecting like something cool like every time it leveled
Yeah,
up to
like
have like a new mechanic, but
I was hoping for like a dynamic raid going in, like, oh, I would do Baba first. Oh, it looks like Zabak's gonna get juiced by this thing I don't want. Let me go do Akka instead, even though I'm not salted because I don't want Zabak to be crazy or whatever.
yeah, like
Nothing changes.
what if there were buffs based on which boss that you did first? It would give it like the strength of Akka or something.
Exactly.
So
Something more creative than 10% damage, or was it 8? I can't remember anymore. It's boring. It just gets more health, that's all I know.
yeah, I don't know. It just feels like there's a lot of things that they could have done. But speaking of which, how about we talk a little bit about Tombs of Amascut and our thoughts on that, shall we?
So Tombs of Mask, I think, is one of the most accessible raids. I'm extremely happy about that. I really enjoy that the fact that you can go in with a Hosta and you can make really good money, and it's not, although it feels worse, it really isn't that much worse on paper than going in with like a Fang, a T-Bow, a Shadow, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Going in with minimum gear isn't really that bad, besides the fact that you do lower invocations. And after seeing the drop rates, I'm very happy that it was a cap for now on, not a cap, it's like a soft cap when you go up a 400 raid level.
Yeah.
It's not as beneficial compared to going from 300 to 400. Going 400 500 is not as beneficial, and I think that's a good way to balance it for low level players, that they don't feel like they're being left in the dust, that the high level players aren't sucking the economy dry because they're getting 9 times the drop rate. By the way, we are actually sucking the economy dry. We're getting like 6 times drop rate if you're doing it correctly. I hope people get into that. People who have the max gear, you guys shouldn't be doing 300s or whatever. You should do 400 plus if you want to make money. But I do generally agree with the sentiment that some people are putting out. I know it's a bit more controversial, but the skill ceiling for the raid kind of stops after about 350. You just have to perfect the mechanic. There's nothing new going from a 450 to a 350 raid. Sorry, 350
Yeah.
to 450 raid. Besides, supply management and playing better. And most of my videos actually basically cater around that supply management, which I don't exactly enjoy. I'm just finding ways to cheat around and squeeze in those extra supplies that you normally don't have with like that kind of gear. For example, I know a lot of people don't like the fact that I made the bot because it's technically worse than BGSing him and T-bowing him, right?
Yeah.
But you save like 4 slots and you don't lose more than like 10 seconds or 15 seconds. So I can see that's like one way to cheat it. You don't have to use Augury of a Shadow. It's a way to cheat it. Sun Karis, I was one of the earlier ones to use that. That's a way to cheat your supplies in and squeeze in, maximum like inventory space to performance.
Yeah, because like with that, it's usually you end up getting a lot of restores if you don't do like was it dehydration? So
Mm.
you can use that as a way to convert extra restores to health.
Overall, besides that, one thing I'm very happy with is the visual clarity that Tombs of Amascut provides. You know how you died almost at least 80-90% of the time in Tombs of Amascut when you do mess up or die.
Yeah.
That I'm extremely happy about, and I have thought about if I were to introduce new invocations or new mechanics, new approaches to tombs, how would I also combine it with, so not combine it, how would I maintain that level of visual clarity we already have? Because that's something we actually don't have in TOB. Although the mechanics are more in depth and there's more skill ceiling with TOB, the you don't really know what's going to kill you until you're already dead.
Pretty much, yeah. There's some good audio cues too, but my only gripe is, so at P3 and the enrage phase, right? There is
Mhm.
so much audio going on. It's hard for you to focus on like changing your prayers.
Yeah, I know exactly what I mean. A lot of people are using plugins to hide sounds actually because they can't stand Zabak blasting you, Baba's throwing a rock at you. There's lightning every half second going on, and then some random noises are happening from the arena
Yeah,
behind you. There's a lot going on.
I think there's like three different IDs of audio just for wind. Then you have the lightning. Then you have like that whirring sound from the warden, just like fucking
Yep.
the whole time. And then what else? Um, there's like a quaking sound. Oh, there's a sound of humidify going on in the background as well.
What?
Yeah, or at least an old ID that is used in humidify, like the storming sound. And the only reason I know all of this is because I've isolated every single warden sound for that phase. I have all the IDs. I'm going to be putting that out at some point because I'm working on a warden's guide.
I
And
did
I
not know
have,
there was a humidify sound going on
yeah,
somewhere.
the only reason I knew that is because it's an old ID. I think it's like 1465 or some number like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, there's just way too much audio for no reason. I mean, I understand, like, you know, kind of adds a little bit to the effect, but it's just, it makes it hard to use your ears to know what to do, and that's the problem.
Hmm. I think, yeah, I guess that is a major problem. I've never thought about audio clarity. I kind of just zone out and listen to music when I do my TOA runs.
Yeah, I have music playing in the background, but it's kind of quiet because I feel that audio does help me a lot with how I
Mm.
play. When I had audio off, I try to like air sounds off. I was
Oh
struggling
no,
a bit with timing my movements
yeah.
with the tile
With how
attacks.
Especially with how bad the servers were on release, I needed sounds to correct the ticks. I needed to know exactly what was being responded to when.
Yeah.
If I don't have sounds and I have no idea what's going on with the ticks, like I'll lose track of them real quick and I'll die. Think what else is going on with TOA here. Although I did say that TOA was interesting up to about 350, I do want to retract a little bit. I think also the quality of the invocations past about 200 raid level are start to get very poor in terms of how the bosses are changed, such as like upset stomach. It's not very good. Mind the gap clarity does not exist. It's, oh, you found out you're dead because you forgot you had it on. The simple idea of it could have been on fire if you had the invocation on it was huge. I was like, why don't you just do that? That's a very small thing they could do. They can just reuse some fire assets and just put it in the pit.
Oh
Um,
God.
and then, if you fall in the fire, you die. Um, Small tip, if you didn't know, I'm pretty sure you know, but the carpet of Baba is the danger zone for the Mind the Gap. They could have also made that change color a little bit when Mind the Gap is on. It could be a very small thing they do.
Ooh.
They can make it a blue carpet or something if Mind the Gap is on. Well, something more colorblind friendly. I think blues, but yeah.
I guess that is actually a valid point because I remember when I first turned it on, I wasn't sure what was gonna happen, and the next thing I know is that me and Tor were in the pit, and he was
Well,
very confused verbally, and I was like,
is it gonna be
yeah,
dead?
yeah, I didn't realize. I thought it was the boulders push you in. No, it's you can get pushed in just
They
from
could all
Baba being angry.
they could also close it off from they could close it off when it's not on and then open it when it's on. That could be a small thing they
Ooh,
could do too. There's always a lot of ideas they could improve visual clarity for Mind the Gap.
yeah.
Bananas, I'm okay with bananas. Although there's a little bit of lag from when you step on them and when you.
Oh yeah, because when you step, it like you step like one more tick and then you like fall over.
Yeah,
I
I would like
think
to see
that
that change.
makes sense because when you slip, you slip forward.
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah.
I don't know if that was what they were going for, but I can see the argument being, well, you're slipping, so you get to slip for a tick and then just fall on your ass.
Yeah. And a lot of invocations, whether you have them on or off, actually don't really change how the boss fights, other than the Akka ones. I think the Akka ones are pretty cool. I think you should have more, but I'm pretty okay with the quality of the Akka ones. For me, the main complaint really is like Baba, Zabak, and Kefri. I think those invocations are really boring in comparison to Akkas and how they interact with each other.
Yeah, like a lot of people have said that Akka is probably one of the hardest parts of the raid. It's very like it is the one part you can really master. So it's good. I mean, there's Butterfly, you take no damage, but of course there's all the
Yeah.
invocations such as Double Trouble and Feeling Special Together, which is a
Yes.
challenge in itself if you're not a bitch and you do the retardant method. No offense to anyone that does that.
No, that's fine.
But then you got Baba, like you said, there isn't really too much. Like boulders get faster, and now there's bananas. You get put in a pit, and you die. Um,
I don't
so
even kill the baboons anymore, so I don't care about the bananas. So
yeah,
it's like I just have them on, and then obviously quiet prayers. Everyone hates that prayer. I don't mind it too much, but everyone hates it. I understand why. I finally started doing some money raise without it. It's like 4 times easier.
yeah, it's just kind of cringe. Not gonna lie. Mainly
Yeah.
Zabak. You could do Zabak with blowpipe specs if you're adrenaline or use yellow cures,
Mhm.
but it's just like it sucks because you're just getting chipped down.
Speaking of Zabak, there is a little bit of in terms of access. I never know how to pronounce the word without like stuttering. Accessibility. Zabak, there is a pretty wide gear gap between having good gear and not having good gear in that place. Blowpipe sucks so
Oh
bad
yeah.
at Zabak. I don't know how low levels are doing Zabak, but it is such a HP sponge. Tebow, it's satisfying getting those big XP hits, Zarek crossbow, but for people who have a bank lower than like 200 mil, Zabak sucks. Zabak sucks bad.
Oh yeah, I mean you could just use a dragon crossbow with Urbi bolts. That's what Noob Type did in his 500
Yeah,
13 mil budget. It took him a while though.
they're just relying on rubies.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's fine. Uh, so I made some invocation ideas because I wasn't happy with some of them. Like Boulder Dash is a little uninteresting just because it gets a little faster. I
So
thought it'd be cool.
I guess we should probably focus more on the invocations now. So we could probably start discussing the state of invocations as well as some new invocation ideas as well.
All right. So I don't like to ever, discuss without having some sort of solution other than Nightmare because I hate that place. But for other Nightmare, for TOA, a lot of the invocations actually. Give me a second. TOA invocations. Let me look up the exact current ones we have now. I quite literally can't remember them because I'm not sure if they're an option or not.
No worries, no
Here they
worries.
are. Okay, got it. So time limits, I'm happy with those. I would like to keep those. Hardcore, softcore, those are fine. But if we're talking engine work on Jagex's side, they could just remove persistence. And in my opinion, they should remove try again, which is the complete softcore. Just leave it at regular softcore. If you want, change it to 5 lives. Keep the same amount of points. Don't punish the players that are, afraid to die. But 5 deaths, in my opinion, is fine because after like 2 deaths, you have to leave the raid because you have no supplies to finish anyway for most people. So if they want to free up some invocations because they have some kind of invocation limit or something, I'm not sure if that's true, then yes, those are the first ones to go. Jog for it, walk for it, those are fine. Not many people really run like sprint for it, in my opinion, so I don't really see the point of that other than because most people who are doing it for money just do walk, jog for it. They don't really do run or sprint too much. So if you wanted to adjust those a little bit, then sure. Because the amount of points you get for upgrading the times are not very good. You only get 5 extra points going for having to sweat up a lot more.
And it punishes you if you don't make the time.
Yeah, a lot too. So need some help, need less help, no help. I think those can stay as needed. But they're part of the overall problem, which is the not really fun invocations. This is a supply limits. Walk the path. This entire invocation needs to be just like changed or if they're gonna use Walk the Path, they need to make it more fun, as you said. Like they gain the strength of Akko or gain the strength of Zabak or something. Now I'm not saying like Baba should start throwing jugs at me and spinning acid on the floor, but
What do you mean? That'd be fun.
there could be something they can take from that place to make it more fun.
They could do like some sort of curse or something. Like we'd have to think of what ways would killing Zabak buff the other bosses, and then if you kill all 3 bosses, then like you have like one super steroid boss that's like completely different than your normal one. It has like a bunch of, like how you have those Barrows curses and something like that, and they pop up on your screen. Maybe not have something like that, but like have some sort of indicator to show like, hi, I'm Akka from the fucking grave, and here I am ruining your fun time at this boss.
That would be good. I was also thinking, would it be nice for there to be 2 easy bosses, and then they can actually make some parts easier? Like, let's say the 3 boulders from Zabak that block the Scream attack. What if they could help block some boulders and Bob or something? So then you can have a mixture of, do you want the third one to be extra easy, or do you want to space out the buffs you're getting or debuffs? As one of my invocation ideas, I don't have a name for that one though. Path Seeker. On a note of current invocation, Path Seeker, Pathfinder, Path Master. I don't know if I should give them credit. I feel like these are supposed to be for extremely high level players trying to do those 500 runs and stuff. But
Yeah.
as of when they're actually used, they're only used for those noob type runs, those 500 raids runs, and I don't think they're really like good invocations in my opinion. I feel like that you could just chop them to just Pathmaster or Pathfinder, just get rid of the rest. I don't think they are worth keeping the slots. Of course, we're talking about Jagex engine limitations or whatever they have. So if I were to pick invocations to go, that would be it. And quiet prayers, of course.
Quiet prayers suck.
It sucks. I take it because I think it's one of the freer ones of the bad invocations, but it still sucks. Let's be real, it still sucks.
Yeah.
I wanted to think my idea to replace quiet prayers was something called punishing prayers. Let's take the Phosani's idea, although I hate the boss.
No.
The fact that you can take more damage messing up and take less or no damage from doing it successfully, in my opinion, is good. Now, does that mean they have to play better in other ways? Yes. So for Baba, if the monkeys aren't alive, you'd be taking no damage from the boss, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
I think there should be some adjustment where, like, maybe you get a little bit. The baboons would hit a little bit harder in that case.
Oh yeah, they pound your ass.
The baboons actually hit harder than Baba, actually, as is already, if you don't have quiet prayers on. So if you want the numbers that I wanted to test initially, it was correct prayers nullify twice as much damage, but they cause you to take 30% more if you have the incorrect ones. So that was my idea for quiets being replaced. And it could be just like a 10-point invocation because it's actually a little too free for higher level players.
But yeah, it wouldn't be too hard. Like, if you make a mistake, though, it's a lot more lethal, that's for sure.
Yeah. And you do have to play around the thresholds so that players can still survive like 118. Because in my opinion, anybody who's safing 118 or whatever should be able to survive even a mistake with that prayer on. Besides, like, messing up an insanity, I guess.
Oh yeah.
What else we have? Deadly prayer I actually think is okay as is. It's not. It's a lot of points. It's not too bad getting drained 20% damage taken. You really don't take that much.
It's a really free invocation.
Yeah, so keep it as is if you want to make it like for people. If you want an invocation that's simple, straight to the point, then yes, that's fine. On a diet is. I don't like that invocation in my opinion. Everyone has it on. Just don't put bandages in the game and remove that invocation. And just, if you want, adjust the drop rate slightly so people are still getting the drop rate buff. Although, what is your opinion on drop rates or TOA? I think it's too much at high invocations, and I think it's a little too low on low, like 150.
That's your thoughts?
Well, I think it's too high on the high end. That's the main one.
I don't know. I do feel that there's just a lot of drops coming in. There was like the major complaint from a lot of high level players. They were not really happy with the fact that at very, very low levels, they could out of nowhere pull like a 1 in 10k shadow. They weren't really happy about that.
Yeah. I don't think shadow should be available in entry either. But
I feel that there should be incentive to, of course, go
to
from
keep
lower raid
pushing.
level and go higher and higher. But at the same time, there needs to be some form of progression, because if you're not making shit at lower levels, then you
Mhm.
won't be able to make the money to get up to higher levels. And of course, some people are going to be like, well, there's some people who are just going to stay in that like level and never come out of it. That's just
Yeah.
how it is, though.
I would prefer the normal jobs to be a little bit not the purple jobs. I want the normal jobs to be a little bit better at lower levels, so they feel like they're getting something out of it. Like as you said, like imagine there was some Onyx Bolt or something like that. But I'm not saying for like Shadow to be like 1 in like 100 and low levels. I just meant like I think the raids I'm doing right now, 1 in 450 rate level, they're about 1 in 9 drop rate. I think that's a little bit too much for one player because it's a stupid amount of money to be making. It might also be tied with the current state of the economy though, of course, because Shadow's still over a bill when it shouldn't be. Fang is still over 50 mil when it shouldn't be, and stuff like that. At this current state of the game, of course. I'm not saying.
Yeah.
Uh, let's see what else. Let's keep going down to the invocations. More overlords sucks. I take it, but such a boring invocation. It just makes it so something. The melee like never hits you, but sometimes it does hit you, and it's like a 40.
You can
I
trap
don't
it,
like.
though.
Yeah, but trapping it kind of sucks too in terms of speed, because like Shadow,
Yeah.
there's a lot of overkill on the Shadow and stuff like that, which I don't personally like. And then you have to use something you're not salted with or combated with. Blowing mud is a non-existent invocation. Just have that on by default. I don't even know what this thing does.
It
The
put
dung is increased
it
to
picks
2.
2 players and then puts down dung. In
Oh,
solos, it does nothing.
speaking of um, solos and teams, I find it a little ridiculous that teams is harder than solos. You actually have to start doing the mechanics in teams. I'm very happy that solos is easy, but I'm not happy that teams is harder.
Some stuff like having double trouble and feeling special on the same time, which is like near impossible in teams, sucks. But then you have something like medic, which is easier in teams and more punishing in solos for some reason. Doesn't
Yeah.
scale at all.
And then the fact that you have to start doing the corruption mechanic and the Baba waves is annoying. Although you can buddy up, it's not a hard mechanic at all. You just use the potion on your teammates. I don't think that's something either. Sharing the rocks in Baba is the main one. You have to go from just grabbing some random rock to actually having to tell your teammates which one you have to grab. I'd rather they just do like an all important thing where they're like assign a color. Although at some point, if they keep doing that, then the rate's gonna look rainbow. But if they keep doing the like color mechanics for assigning people, let's see. Aerial assault, I'm actually very happy with. I'm actually super happy with mechanics that carry over into Warden. Aerial assault carrying over was like a huge surprise to me that I enjoyed when I first was doing TOA.
I
Stay
have
vigilant. It's
I have
good.
one thing to mention real quick, because I just thought of something when you're talking about corruption.
Yes.
So, you know how in the monkey room, right?
Mm-hmm.
Players have that thing that they can see what is wrong with the room in teams.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wonder if instead of there being that whole color thing, if there would be like one builder and you basically just need to call out like who you see is like they can
Yes.
stand next to the boulder, who can't.
Mhm.
If it end up standing next to the boulder, they're gonna take a shitload of
That
damage.
would be
That'd
that
be
would be a
cool.
great idea. They do that, and I played a lot of MMOs, so that's where I steal a lot of my ideas from. Lost Ark does that too. There are people who can see things that others can't. It gets
Yeah.
very chaotic when they don't call out what they need to do. So I don't think it should be a complete white mechanic because that gets really annoying. Someone just doesn't want to talk that day, and it becomes a mess for everyone else.
Yeah, it's completely fair.
As long as there's a way to also solve it in solo, of course. Um, okay, and that's it for Caffrey Sabak. I don't know what. Let's see. Blood magic. That should just be on by default, in my opinion. Same thing for the blood blitz. Although they can just make it so that standing next to players could be a separate invocation. So you can change that from a 2 invocation to 1. Or just leave it on arterial spray, but not just a head. Just a head should just, in my opinion, be on default. You can still pray from it last second. Blood thinners, just leave that on by default. That invocation could be like removed and just put on by default. And then, does anyone here actually enjoy upset stomach? For me, I've
No.
gotten good at it. That doesn't make much of a difference, but this is not really an enjoyable change to the fight. I can't see why this invocation actually made it through, in my opinion. It's a very small change that just makes the raid increasingly frustrating or non-existent, depending how good you are at it.
Just a high
And
chance
then,
of lose DPS, at least in solos and teams. It's a bit easier to solve it because people are more
yeah,
spread out.
I'm very happy when I get the jugs that you just have to push them into the rock. You don't even
Oh
need to
yeah.
hit it. Those are nice. And then Baba, Mind the Gap. I'm okay with Mind the Gap. Just needs more visual clarity. Gotta have faith. I'm not happy with the sarcophaguses in general, not just the invocation for this one. I think they're a really boring mechanic, considering it's very RNG dependent. If you were trying to kill the baboons, there's very bad RNG you can have that the baboons completely ignore you. You do no damage to them, and they one-shot your
Yeah, I
sarcophaguses.
hate that so
I hate
much.
it. So even if they wanted to make it so you have to kill them, there's too much RNG right now. You have to use like Fang specs. It's not like you're gonna whip out on blowpipe or freeze them, because if you take anything other than melee gear to Baba, you're gonna get hit 20s constantly. Bananas, that could be on by default. Or in my opinion, if you wanted to leave it, honestly, let me change my mind. I think bananas are okay. I think they're okay. They're not like immediately need to be removed on high priority. Shaking things up, that should just be on default. I think you can just change shaking things up to, instead of it being wider, it does 3 slams instead. So the safe spots become predetermined, like right, left, middle.
Ooh.
That would be more fun than just moving 2 ticks any direction you want. Speaking of which, how has it been 3-4 months and Baba doesn't have an animation for that slam?
Slam. I mean, he has like that arm thing, but that's it.
I thought that was
Just
his
that.
regular melee attack that
It
he was just doing.
is. It is. It literally is the same animation. Just does this and then just shit under. That's it. Nothing different.
Like, I don't know, that was pretty disappointing to me. Boulder Dash. So should I get on to the ideas that I have at this point? Because I think the
Um,
invocation ideas like changes, or should I just
sure,
keep
but
talking with current ones?
was there anything you had like thought wise in regards to like wardens? Like, would you change anything warden wise or not really?
For things not mentioned, I'm okay. Okay, so Wardens, Ancient Haste. This seems like a gear check invocation. Everyone who has a shadow keeps it. Everyone who doesn't tends to turn it off. It's the way I've
Yeah,
seen this raid.
DPS check pretty
I'm
much.
okay with that. I'm okay with that being like a gear check, but solos wise, you take a bunch of unavoidable damage, and team wise, it's not. It's a very uninteresting mechanic either way.
Yeah.
It seems like a little bit of a copy paste from Soda Seg, and I'm not too happy with that. And it's not as creative as hard mode Soda Seg either for that mechanic where you have to share them a certain way. Acceleration, penetration, overclocked, and overclocked 2. I'm not happy with any of these. I'm okay with the state of insanity, but I thought it would be cooler from the way that they describe it in game. The warpings become
It's
unstoppable.
so these are the things that happen when you have it turned on. Number one, enraged face tiles disappear faster. Number
Yep.
two, the damage of a tile attack increases by give or take 20%. Number
Okay.
three, you don't have as much time to solve the skulls. And number four, by default, the phantoms will be level 2. So if they are not like above level 2, like they're level 0 or level 1, they're level 2 by default. So that's why you'll never have slow boulders from Baba, and you always have like a level 2 back if you're doing like path level 1, path level 0 for those rooms. So I don't know. Does that really garner the wardens becomes unstoppable caption they decided to throw onto it? I don't think so.
When I first saw that, I thought it was gonna be some crazy stuff. Like he's still doing tile slams the entire time during the arena
Yeah.
break. I thought it would be so much more fun. I mean, I'm very happy with the idea that Warden's P4, P3 is where they slowly tack on mechanics. 80, 60%, they slowly tag on Zabak, they slowly tag on Baba. And then, the modifiers and invocations change. So when I was first doing my 150, I thought it would be really cool. But then after you keep testing the raid, it just slowly gets more and more boring. It's like, oh, nothing actually changed. I already learned insanity. Nothing changed. Doing a 250 insanity, then a 450 insanity. So I would like to see acceleration, penetration, overclocked, and overclock 2, at least for P2. They can either be on by default, but do far less damage on lower invocations, because I still want newbies to have a chance to learn it while having to jump straight into it. Because I understand they have like less intuition when it comes to ticks. So I understand, there's nothing wrong with that.
Even then, with acceleration brings the attack speed down from 8 ticks to 6 ticks, which is still, in my opinion, a very reasonable amount of time to swap the attacks.
Yeah, exactly. I just think going from a full invocation warden to none is big difference. I was teaching a friend TOA who was newer to raiding, and we had nothing on, and I swore I was playing warden in slow-mo because I felt like even my regular ticks were getting slower. I was like, the hell's going on? This guy takes like 20 years to do a slam. I did like 3 shadows before he did it.
So I think entry mode is 7 ticks and 6 ticks once the first phantom spawns, and then it goes 5 ticks for overclocked, and that's for the whole fight, and then 4 ticks for overclocked 2 for the whole fight.
Would you be opposed to Jack simply stating what the invocation does instead of saying the wardens are unstoppable? Although
I would like it was more thorough. Maybe if you do the raid with the invocation turned on, then they should give you a full description of what it does. Because that way, if they want to keep that surprise factor, then sure. Then they can have it off.
Like a spoiler alert.
Yeah. So it didn't spoil it until after you complete it, because at that point, people will know what it does, and they're going to tell all their friends. So by the point someone does it, there's really no need for surprise. And if people really care to not want to know what it does, they don't have to look online, right?
Exactly.
So that is actually a good point. But it's kind of annoying because there's so much information that for all these invocations, people don't really know about.
Like, none of it's listed on the actual game. Like,
yeah, like I spent 3 days in entry mode suiciding over and over and over again, testing out different things, and I've learned a lot over those days about each of the invocations. But I would have liked it if I didn't have to spend 3 days. There's another thing too that I'm not sure a lot of people know about. It's the HP of the warden also affects the damage of the slam max hit. So as its HP goes down, the damage goes down.
I don't know that.
That's why at the start you'll get hit something like at a high level, like 45 to 50. With Insanity on, I think it's like, I don't remember if you can do a 60. I need to do more tests, but I saw like 55, 58, I think. And then at lower HP, I got hit like a 30 something.
I really didn't know that. So, I mean, I guess that's actually a good design, because as the raid's getting faster for noobs, they need to, they're making a lot more mistakes. So it's okay to have it slightly less punishing as it gets a little bit harder.
Plus the phantoms are like present too, so it's more stuff they have to deal with. But so it's kind of nice that the HP of the warden affects the damage a bit. Not completely, but it does bring it down to like, give or take like 20, 30%. I don't know the exact numbers or the cutoff, because it stops at some point. But yeah.
I think that idea about having 2 wardens would be cool too. Although it'd be cool if like also carries on to P3. Imagine you have to deal with
2 wardens P3. How would that work, though?
You would obviously have to space out the slams, so you're not getting the whole arena slammed at the same time.
Oh man, maybe it's like different sections. Like maybe chop it up a bit more.
But I would be okay with like having to deal with like Akkas or Bak as long as they're prayable against. Of course, for some like cracked Wooks player who wants to deal with praying against the Bak and Akka at the same time, to make it work.
You could also have it where it swaps the phantoms out, because the scariest thing is having Kefri with aerial assault on. So now just have them swap out from time to time. So maybe you'll have to deal with a Kefri out of nowhere, and then you have those fireballs coming down. You're like, what the fuck is this shit?
Where's the part where Baba starts rolling boulders at me while I'm dodging tiles?
Oh yeah, it'd be cool to see that. And then I think for a while I've been thinking about how they would implement doing 2 wardens at once. Maybe have it where you have to target one of the wardens, and after you target that one, then the other one
Mhm.
becomes targetable after it comes back up. So it like swaps which one is vulnerable. But as you're like once one goes down, the obelisk like freezes as per normal.
Mhm.
But you'll still have to deal with the other warden attacking you while you're hitting the core. There's of course different ways they could handle it, but I was thinking that'd be
Yeah.
one way to do it.
Unfortunately, I haven't thought too much about warden invocation ideas. Mostly just for the other 4 rooms, because in my opinion, they're the first to address because they're the most boring of the fight. I'm actually okay with the warden fight. It's not close to Verzig or Ulm quality, but it's
Oh yeah,
acceptable.
because
The four other bosses are far more boring.
Ulm has a lot of depth, and Verzuk has a lot of danger attached to
A lot
it.
of perfection, yeah.
Perfection and danger, and then you have crabs. So like each fight has a lot of depth, and the fights feel, even though they're kind of the same thing every time, there's just a lot of things you need to master in those fights. And then with Warden, I mean, there's still some things you have to kind of keep in mind, but once you get those down, it's basically the same thing every time. You don't really have to like know how to master like an acid walk in the middle of Wardens. It's just, oh, lightning bomb, come down. I stand here. The end.
After doing a lot of warden, the only things I would say like on the perfection level of things I have to do is learn the exact best way to dodge lightning every time while taking damage. I'm almost there. If you didn't know, lightning goes in 3 sets, 1, 2, 3, and
Yeah,
then it pops 1, 2, 3. Of course, you know this since you spent 3 days in there. But
because I see like the lightning bolt on the spot you stand on, and then doom doom.
yeah,
So
and then mastering that, and then the shadow's ridiculously long. Projectile time, you can save a few ticks by getting close when you're about to proc those 20%. But that's like very boring stuff in comparison to like being the whoever here has done Tob knows the feeling of finally perfecting the perfect tanking. It
hot
feels so
tank.
good. It feels so good. Not just well, Pog tank too, but when you're tanking just regular P3, you step under at the last second, you click Verzik last second. You're that guy who's able to keep Verzik still without caring. You just don't lose any ticks. Verzik's not moving. Everyone's chilling, having a good time. That's a great feeling that you can't really get in Warden.
Yeah, that's completely fair. Just you don't feel good about mastering a mechanic at Warden because they're kind of simple.
Yeah. And in terms of teams, they don't save your team any kind of HP by mastering any mechanic like that either. There's
Yeah,
no reward other than your HP is not getting lowered more.
which is
Although
fair.
I would be very opposed to, like taking damage from a teammate's mistake. But I mean, in a team raid, it is bound to happen, right? So,
Oh yeah. Such as people going to the wrong boulders at Baba,
yep,
or
that's the main one.
someone
That
runs
one
into
really.
someone with orbs during P1 wardens.
Well, I think that's pretty much it. I think I probably nuked like somewhere between 8 and 10 invocations in that, maybe more in that entire discussion from boss top to bottom.
Yeah, I kind of do hope that they don't just give up on adding more stuff to it, because it just sucks that they said they had no plans of adding more invocations when the best time for them to add more invocations as well, content is in its prime, and not when you have most of the high level base just kind of tired of the content now because nothing new is coming out of it, and they feel like it's not hard enough.
Yeah,
It
but I
would,
do want to. It is hard because if you approached it just the way like a high level player like me would think, then yes, eventually I'm pretty sure the way I say it, the rate's gonna be a lot harder because basically like 150s would be everything on by default. But of course, I would make adjustments to make it easier for newer players because it's not right for someone who's getting just into the mix to somehow now deal with every boss has every mechanic on all the time. So
yeah,
of course there would be some adjustments.
I don't know. I guess we'll see what ends up happening in the future, but um, I don't want to say that I foresee a good future for TOA. I
Mhm.
just don't know if they're really gonna. I have no hopes right now. I really don't think they're gonna be making any major changes, but you can pray.
Yeah, I'm really hoping because we know that Jagex takes a while for some of their updates recently. So if nothing happens to this place, I'll see you guys in 6 months when I'm finished merging the GE because there's nothing else to do. There's literally nothing else for me to do right now. It's like I finished my log and I'm bored. I'm not really inclined to do over 1,000 raids like I did for top. I don't find it anywhere as fun.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I first thought to myself, oh, this is kind of enjoyable, and it kind of gives me some Chambers vibes. So I think I
Yeah.
can grind this out for a bit. Now it's like, no, I'm gonna go for the pet. I'm gonna go for the diary times and upload, and I'm probably just gonna move on to the normal content I do, just Chambers, maybe some other stuff. Might do it on a new account at some point, but I don't know. This doesn't feel as fun.
I'm a little bit motivated to help some of my other friends grind out some team rates because I've been making some ideas of how to like artificially boost their drop rates a little bit because they're Iron Man and I don't need the money, so I was going to use Venge. They're going to use Thralls. They'll get more of the drop rate, and we have some things going on. I'll bring defense reductions for them to help speed up their drop rates.
Red Gear's smiley face?
Yes, probably, but it depends. Depends how slow it gets for the raid. Because I don't want to take the drops at this point. I'm just finding ways to like cheese the raid at this point.
I guess that's fair. Alright, so I guess we can move on from TOA and we can start discussing about some of the proposed items they've got. So there was that wilderness blog, and they have all those items coming in. So you have like the 3 wilderness weapons, you got the Karasi sword coming in. Now you have the bloodletter bow coming from like a post quest boss as well, which is like, you remember the old Zarek bow proposition?
Mm-hmm.
It's like that, but slightly tweaked, where it can like double hit the first target you're attacking. But I think by default it targets 3 players. So we could probably like talk about that a bit, and we can also talk about some of the game jam pitches that they had a few weeks ago too.
All right, sounds good. For the bloodletter bow, and I'm not really sure if Jagex is in touch as they believe they are, but starting with how the polls have been treated recently and how people have been reacting to them, it's not the graphs that they're providing aren't very clear. So people aren't sure how to compare it with DPS wise. It's very easy for people to accidentally become like outraged with these things because they don't know what they're reading, because it really doesn't make sense until you look at it for like 10 minutes. A graph shouldn't really take you like more than like 1 minute to interpret at most. So what was that thing where they said it was? Let me see if I can find this. Yes. The bow is not meant to be competing with the likes of the Twisted Bow or Zarek crossbow. And then somewhere down there they say the Bloodletter's bow is comparable to the Toxic Blowpipe with Dragon Darts or the Twisted Bow with Dragon Arrow. I was like, okay, if you compare just those 2 sentences, you didn't put any where here that's they said yes, that's if you hit your primary target twice. But a lot of people don't read up to that.
Yeah,
a lot of people don't read up to that. It's very easy for them to suddenly get very angry because they think, oh, this thing is going to drop like a blowpipe drop rate. It's going to be 4 mil, and it's going to absolutely decimate everything in the game. Also, if you saw the way it works in the game, the 1x1, 2x2, in my opinion, this is a very needlessly over complex mechanic. I enjoy the fact that they are trying to create a niche, especially for people who don't want to farm Chinchompas, to be able to farm monsters, right? Like,
yeah.
But where are you actually going to use this thing? I know the first release of the Zarek bow, when they wanted to do it with Nex, was a little too strong. You could kill things in the Inferno without even seeing them, just by like hitting a bat or a nibbler or something like that.
A little strong in that, in that department.
A little too strong, but a little too strong. I accidentally one-shot every blob.
I think there's still some use in Inferno with this new proposed one. Not as strong, but you can use it to kill split nibs, which are a big issue. And if you see an opportunity, like let's say you have a bat next to some of the bloblets, as long as they're kind of close to the bat, then you can use it to your advantage. So there is a bit of strategy to it. I am not sure if a lot of the the Inferno speedrunners are too happy about it though, because I've spoken to some of them and they're like, no.
I can't say anything about Inferno speedruns. I have no idea about that place. I'm sure the Bloodletter bow has some sort of place in here that will make it a lot easier.
Yeah, and then for BA too, I think it would make BA.
I don't even think about BA. Although arrows would you use? I guess you could use like whatever arrows they give
Yeah,
you
you
the like
basically use
missile.
whatever arrows they give you, and you could hit like 3 targets, and they're all 1 by 1, so it'd actually be pretty good.
It actually would be pretty good there, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think it's 4 tick though now, right? Not 3 tick as it used to be.
Yeah, it would be 4 tick on rapid.
So
It'd be
that's
cool. Also be
not
really nice
too
on
bad.
Slayer, I guess. If anybody cares too much about that, because they're not barraging everything.
Yeah, but let's be real. Most people are probably gonna barrage nowadays. It's not too expensive
Yeah,
as long as you have like some
yeah.
form of
It re-
income.
it really isn't that bad as much. I'm okay with people AFKing Slayer, but this realistically is like not really that AFK because you would have a good offensive pair with on, so your prayer would drain really fast. So it doesn't fill that niche, unfortunately, either of being the most AFKable weapon to use. But
Yeah.
it would be cool. Bloodletter bow. What's the other? What was the other? Oh, What is your opinion on charged weapons? No one really likes it, in my opinion. I'm okay with it as long as the charges are less annoying. You would think 20k is a long time, but it's not. Surprisingly.
I feel that charges are kind of an excuse for you to have to do the content to keep the weapon going. So it's like an artificial way of
Mm,
keeping the content like fresh and you're still making money from it.
yeah,
That's the only thing that I'm thinking of when you do charge weapons.
I just keep thinking about the many hours that have been lost in the world in human productivity because an Iron Man had to just kill Zora for the 10,000th time because they have to just keep getting their scales. That's the only reason I don't do Iron Man, by the way. I don't want to do Zora for the rest of my life
I mean, you could
in
always
order to
fish, but still, that's you're still dedicating time to get scales, and I'm pretty sure that's still slower than just killing Zora.
yeah, it does sour the experience long term. Although it does make a good idea for
HiImSido.
keeping it more sustainable. I think it would be better to, especially when it comes to charges, it shouldn't be something that's exclusive to a place. For example, blood runes. Although Scythe uses a lot of blood runes, at least you can get them somewhere else. I'm not happy with like Iron Man blood rune shopping, but it shouldn't be exclusive to a certain place. Like imagine we had to do TOB endlessly in order to charge our Scythe. I wouldn't be happy with that either.
Me neither. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not like too keen on having it. I mean, it's cool to see some stuff come out like crystal shards, but that has multiple use outside of just charging
Yes.
weapons. So I feel like that was done okay. And even then, when you do charge it, like for example, if you charge your bow, it gives you so many shots. You don't even need a perma charge your bow because it just gives you so many shots. You only
Oh, true.
perma charge it if you only plan to.
It's got a point vials of blood. I forgot. It's because their drop rate is a lot better, so it's not as bad. But yeah, you do kind of have to do TOB to get those vials.
Yeah.
Um, as for the new scepter they're also releasing, I'm actually very happy, by the way, that this boss is somewhere on the mid level. I heard a lot of people complaining that they have like somewhere between 70 80 stats. There's not really much to do because you don't really want to start raids until you're like on the 80s plus. Although you
Yeah.
can, if you're experienced. The scepter, I want to be real about this. They said this is supposed to sit between the ancient staff and the Kodai wand. Uh, and then they got called out because that's literally what the nightmare staff does.
Yeah.
And then they just made a addition saying, "Oh, and between the nightmare staff." It's like, come on,
They
just
forgot about the nightmare staff.
you guys yourself forgot about the nightmare staff. There's no need to cut corners and say, "Oh, let me make that addition that solves it." Now,
They don't
come on,
care. They don't care.
they don't care anymore. I don't want to be real. They didn't care about the nightmare staff. This is so sad.
Man.
Um, I mean, I'm okay with fulfilling the small niche, but it's such a small niche. It's such a meaningless item to spend time on, in my opinion. No one's really gonna care that they're gonna upgrade from ancient staff to this 5% bonus. I mean, yeah, it buffs the effects of ancient mags by 10%, but like it's not buffing the damage, so who really cares? PVM wise, no one's gonna care about this stuff. And they said they might be releasing something to make it more better because if you look at what they're changing with the shadow and smokes for Ancients. It's very minimal. It doesn't change anything. So maybe we'll see some new spells come out for Ancients. Does that justify the staff being good now? Because the staff would suddenly go between from sitting on a niche, as they said, as a mid-game niche, to suddenly becoming possible BIS if it's worth it for these effects. I mean, doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of it filling that niche?
I'd say
Anyway,
something like that. It is kind of, I don't know why, that makes me think like having a weapon that you kind of like build upon it. Like you get a weapon, it's kind of weak, and then you build upon it is always like a cool concept. Like did you play Terraria? You remember that one sword, but you had to get like all those swords, and you had to do like
yes,
that. Was it Blood Moon or that one event we have like all those monsters coming at you? You have to kill those for like
yeah,
that broken sword or something.
yeah. Those are always so hyped to go look forward to. Trying to get the broken hero sword.
Yeah, that's what it's called, Broken Hero Sword. So I'm wondering if maybe we should have something more like that, a weapon that you, as time goes by and you do more content, you kind of upgrade it.
I would be okay with them. I mean, as much as I hate Nightmare, the orbs thing, I'd be okay with the orbs being moved over to a separate place and being an addition to the Nightmare staff. That would be a good idea, as you said. So you
Ooh,
can get the orb from a different boss
yeah.
and attach it to the Nightmare staff. Of course, the Nightmare staff is really rare still, even though it's the most common drop from them. And then the Saturated Heart. I'm okay with the Imbued Heart being a bit of an upgrade, but it's going to be a little annoying for people who have to hunt Imbued Heart. The Imbued Heart isn't really something you want to dedicate a hunt to because it's such an RNG grind. A lot of Ironmen still don't have it. So yeah, you can. It's going to be weird grinding and having possibly like 4 of these upgrades, but then no one has the heart because the heart is such a rare item.
And then they're adding a divine effect to it, if I recall correctly, as a separately pulled question.
Yeah. If this divine thing goes on, I don't know if they addressed this, but what would happen after it goes down? So let's say you're at one. What is the amount of magic you're at? 4 plus 10%, so that's 9 plus.
It goes
So
to
you'd be at
112, I think?
yeah. So you'd be at 112 magic. What happens when that runs out? Does it divine for the entire duration that it's out, which is like 7 minutes for the imbued heart, or does it leave you at 99 magic sitting there for like 2 minutes? Because that would be very awkward. Because divine only lasts 5 minutes. So
Good
my
question.
my guess is it would last the full 7 minutes, but they should address that in the poll for clarity. Like it's gonna last the entire time. You won't be sitting there on 99 magic unless you brew down or something.
Yeah.
And then the Magister's brew, I guess, but where are you gonna get the Nihil shards from? No one wants to do next. So
Just kill the guys outside of the next room for Nihil Short, smiley face.
yeah. You get like one every like 10 minutes. As a, I'm not really of course my bank's very happy that they're making this because I have a lot of ancient brews, um
I see!
but do I think this is a good idea in the game? Not really. Um Not because like the idea of the potion's bad to give good magic levels, just shards are a very limited supply. So yeah, this is kind of a weird thing.
I think they're like slowly but surely, they're adding more and more potions in preparation to, in the future, they're probably going to end up proposing a out of
Open.
raid overload. Yeah.
Yep. That's
So,
my yeah. And then but let's say that comes out. Are Iron Man realistically going to farm for it unless it's at least as good as Assault? I don't think most people will care about grinding Nihil shards to make an Overlord. Overlord. Overload.
Overlord. More overlords?
More Overlords.
Nah, I think it depends because it will probably be beneficial in places like maybe Godward's Dungeon, but
Hmm.
this might be something more for mains and more of an option for irons if they need like overloads for
Yeah.
something. But
Of course, people say you shouldn't balance for Iron Man, but let's be real. There's so many Iron Men. They don't have a choice. There's so many Iron Men in the game that if you don't somewhat make it balanced for them, it's not gonna work out because people are gonna be very upset.
angry gamers.
Uh, yeah, and you're gonna get angry gamers everywhere.
Yeah, it's because the community, even then, people are going to be like, well, they chose this game mode, but here's the thing. They got to kind of have to cater to as many people as possible, as shown by them catering
Exactly.
to
It's
the majority
a
of people for TOA.
Jagex is a business. They have to cater and make everyone, as many people as they can, happy. If there's a lot of people playing Iron Man, they're gonna make them happy.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. It's not something balance wise. Of
Yeah.
course, you are kind of I mean, I guess if you wanted to like twist my words, that's maybe what they wanted to do of evolution of combat. But obviously, that didn't
Stop.
make
No,
anyone
no,
happy.
no, no,
Don't
no.
twist my words.
Cut the feed. Cut the feed. Cut the feed. You didn't hear anything, guys.
Yeah, please don't think I actually proposed evolution of combat in a good way. That one made so many people angry, and it's so weird that they actually went with it.
I don't understand why they did it. Like the backlash they got from it. I mean, I feel like RS3 now isn't necessarily a bad game, but I'm pretty sure I don't know if the game would have still been popular if they decided to not go that route.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure. It's tough to say.
And what's your opinion about the combat achievements? The new changes to combat achievements. I think they could be even better than this, and I think it does deserve it.
Oh, you mean the upgrades?
Yeah.
So here's a couple things that I think would be good. Someone said not infinite cape swaps, but cape swaps restock in instances. That would be kind of cool because it's the one problem I can see is that some people are going to go in the wilderness if they were to add like an increase to like the maximum amount of cape swaps. So they would just, PB and then swap the barrage. People still can do that, but they can't do it as much as they want. So I think that'd be one kind of nice change because a lot of speedrunners, they complain about not having enough cape swaps. But then again, if they do that, then that's going to open the doors of like some really new metas that people might not be happy about if it means having to bring like a billion runes or something. But
yeah,
who knows? It is already a thing that people do is they do cape swaps though. So it'd be kind of cool if they did something like restocking. So that's one thing I'd like. That change with the NPC contact, thank God they scrapped that. It seemed very odd to do that. Seemed very odd. The increase in the effect regarding Godber's case, that was really nice. It's really good. If you're doing dual necks, you don't have to stock up and on as much KC. Thank God they did that. Cannonballs feels odd.
It was weird, yeah.
I can understand it at maybe the lower sections of it because, as like someone that's getting into PvM and you're doing those tasks, having extra cannonballs is kind of nice because you're not going to be maxed out, so you're going to be continuing to train your stats. So I guess in that sense it's nice, but when we're talking like Grandmaster, I would think of things that kind of, nothing game breaking, because if you make things that are absolutely game breaking, then that's not good, because I remember they proposed that help that gave stats, and that feels like something you'd want to have from a boss or something like a quest or anything like that, but not locked behind all those achievements. There is one more thing that I think would be nice, and it'd be something to do regarding Slayer tasks. Now, I don't want it to be so OP to the point where it's like, oh, so if you want to get like 200 more Slayer XP, you need this. But maybe have something like you get to pick one free task a week, or use Slayer points for a task a week at Grandmaster, or something like that, or maybe even increase the weight slightly for something. But that's where you kind of get into that realm of
one free task a week would be cool. So
yeah,
people who want to grind, let's say a Zuck pet casually, I would love that, because I stopped doing it because I was tired of skipping for like hours and not getting it. That would be really nice because I can do TOA or whatever, raid or whatever, and then randomly do a Zuck task when I want to. And if I had the Grandmasters, I get 3 of them. That'd be cool.
That'd be cool because then I could do like every week I could do like my 3 Zucks and then move on to the next week. Or someone that does CMs, they can just pick a Shaman task and be good for a month. Not really, but it would be like good for like a week or a couple of days. So that's the good thing about it. Of course, it'll be like that slight XP boost, so the EHP poo-poo might get upset by it, but I don't think they're going to be that upset by it.
It's a once a week thing. It's fine.
That's a once a week thing, so I think it wouldn't be the end of the world.
I think when it comes to these new items, also, I am also a little concerned because the Bloodletter boat is trying to somehow fill a niche into the end game community, whether it's Inferno speedrunning or whether it's efficient slaying or whatever the niche is going to fill. But it's coming from a boss that is geared toward low level players. How are you realistically going to make this boss balanced so that people can actually kill it with bad stats like 70, 80s, with bad gear like Rune Crossbow, Whip, or what Toxic Blowpipe, whatever? But I'm not even sure if they're aiming for above that same level or below the Toxic Blowpipe level of like gear. But how are you going to make this good money for those players without making it a complete farm fest for people higher level? Are you going to lock it to Slayer? Are you going to cap the damage like Zulrah does? So, if Tebow wasn't capped.
That would be a good point, actually, having it cap damage if they really wanted to do that. I know Sarachnis is kind of in that ballpark. It's content that isn't really done much, but the reason for that is because it doesn't really make you money. People only do it for the pet, and they only do it for clues, elite clues.
Yeah.
Those are two things, but with this piece of content, seeing that bow is probably going to be someone that is wanted, and then you have the shards, it's going to be someone that's probably farmed by high-level players and mid-level players.
Yeah.
So
I would see that because of that massive gear cap, high-level players would be making at least 3-4 times the money that low-level players are getting, because it's not like a Zulrah gap where people are using tridents and Toxic Blowpipe. We're talking possibly something with lower. They haven't spoiled it, of course, but I hope to see that they are able to balance it so that mid-level players get something out of it other than 100k and the scale and some scales or whatever the shards are. Sorry, Phantom Essence.
Yeah.
So I guess Phantom Essence would be most of it, but I don't know. I hope it works out well. And then what else? There was something I wanted to discuss. Oh yeah, the game jam was for. I hope if any of these go through, from my personal opinion, I'm not saying it would be the most balanced one. I want that Torva cosmetic upgrade to be the first one on the line, because I don't personally like how Torva looks. A lot of people do.
I do, just because of nostalgia reasons.
Yeah. But I personally want it to look a little cooler, or at least match the Scythe because it's max melee.
That's fair.
By the way, the Holy Kit looks terrible. I still don't have a choice because that's the only kit I have. But I would like it to match the Sanguine though. That would be the coolest one. Some people propose that Inquisitor could possibly become an ornament kit attachment or something, or you can also get the addition of the crush bonuses on the Torva. That would be really strong.
That'd be
really
very,
strong.
very strong.
So, of course, probably think about that a little bit more before I hope they don't actually just do that without thinking about it.
I think it's just cosmetic right now, and if they did some Torva Inquisitor hybrid, I don't know how I'd feel about that.
And then that seems to be the major challenge they're going to have going forward, is that a lot of high-level players are going to be making a lot of money, and then a lot of people from the mid-game community are going to complain because they're making the money worse for them because they're doing the content so much faster, stuff like that. So they have to, clues are untradeable, of course, and stuff like that. So that's what keeps it going for Sarachnis.
Yeah.
But no one farms Sarachnis for money, so.
I'm trying to think, though, because I feel like the only complaints when it was with TOA, like, people were really happy with TOA. They were just more complaining when they were, making changes to it. And then you had, no clash between, high-level and low-level players as to how drop rates should be handled. So...
At the current state, I'm not sure if a low-level player knows this, but yes, a higher-level player probably makes at least 4 to 6 times more money than the average, low-level raider does.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if they could be happy with that because it's, such a big difference. Doing a 150 to a 450 is, such a big difference.
Well, all I have to say is if they really want to make more money, then there is one solution.
Get good.
Get good. Like I said, you have to invest time to improve in something, and it's not impossible. Any person to improve, you do have to dedicate the time. It's not going to be like you log in, boom, Tebow right then and there with little to no effort. No, you got to grind for it. There's going to be RNG, but if you really want to increase those odds, see more money, you got to put in the time and the effort.
I think Jagex should actually say something to address that going forward before they make any new kind of game-changing content, because what is the bar that you should set? So low-level players, are they happy with making a 6 of the money? If that is what your goal as Jagex is saying yes, mid-level players should have to grind, should have to get good in order to make that money. I'm sure people will understand their stance at least on it, and then understand the state of how they treat drop rates and stuff like that. But if you don't say anything about it, you're going to continue to have these little arguments between saying you should have to get good to get this money, but I shouldn't have to grind 1,000 hours to make that kind of money. Although but like my point, I would say stands that Jaggers should say some kind of firm stance. How do they want this game treated?
Yeah, because
Between
this game is a grind. This game's a grind. If you really want it to be more accessible, they need to somehow increase that transition from like mid game into end game quicker. Yeah. And I think that's something that RS3 does a good job of. There's a lot of end game content you can do. There's like a lot of elite dungeons, which are like kind of like raids. You have like a lot of group bosses. You got solo bosses. You have rage mechanics, and you have like all these different things that make it where there's a lot of stuff you can do in the end game, and it's not easy. Eventually, some of it does end up becoming easier with power creep and stuff like that. Yeah. But even then, I think they do a good job. And what makes it good is you get into it roughly fast. I don't want to say like super fast, but it's not as long of a grind as, let's say, old school RuneScape, where to get all your stats done and get all the gear, it takes a lot. And I mean a lot of time. There are some more items now that kind of bridge the gap. We have the Fang, have the Bofa, and then we have the Trident / Sang. So that is kind of nice that we have more weapons kind of bridge your way there, but still, I feel like there's still a lot they could do to make it a bit accelerated. Because with that, then you can introduce more harder content because you have more people actually doing harder content, or giving us trying it. Because they have access to it.
And then game jam pitches. A lot of them are I saw a lot of them were from Mod Soften, who's been doing an excellent job when it comes to the art. I really appreciate the things she's been pulling out. And we'll start with that before we go, I guess, into the other stuff like the Inferno and stuff. So, did I have it up actually? Sorry, actually, I'll destroy Game Jam OSRS. I had it pulled up and I closed it somehow. Game Jam. Okay, starting with the wilderness, they first need to find a way to expand the wilderness before making all these bosses and stuff. The art design wise, I think it looks excellent. I would love to see some of these into the game. Some of them are a little bit too detailed, so I would like them to strip down just a little bit. Overall design great. A little too much detail for old school players. I'm pretty sure people who are used to the old school art will not be used to a lot of this stuff. Such as the boss Skull that she initially proposed. That one has a lot of polygons from what it looks like. If they try to implement it in the game, that might be a little bit too much. But I would also hope that when they're releasing content, they brought out in a lot of ideas. Teleports into the wilderness. That place is, although it is also huge, there's also a lot of teleports going in. It would be kind of weird if they didn't expand the wilderness and then they added more teleports to it. I think right now we're almost like at the cap of how many teleports you can add to that place without it becoming a little redundant.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, no one wants to go to the wilderness anyway, so. But
Clue Lighters do. That's why people get PK'd for the spades.
At least some of the ideas are cool. But I would love for them to first address, if I were to pick an order of that mid-game transition, as you said, I would personally do ranged, and then melee, then magic, in that order. I think tank busting range right now has a bad gap for wealth, where you either have a rune crossbow or dragon crossbow, and then you have to, because let's be real, the upgrade between dragon crossbow and ACB is non-existent.
Yeah.
And then you have to somehow get all the way to like a Zerek crossbow or a Bofa in order to tank bust anything with ranged, which is a lot more money. Compared from whip to fang, it's like, like a mil to 50 mil, and then the range is, you have blowpipe at 4 mil, dragon crossbow. Actually, don't know what dragon crossbow is at, but I'm sure it's less than 10 mil. And then you have,
I think so, yeah. It's like
nothing until ZCB, which is and Bofa, which is like 200, 300 mil each, which kind of sucks for the average player.
Yeah.
So I would hope they introduce some sort of ranged weapon that can somehow sit between currently 50 and 100 mil, and then, or maybe even like 30 to 50 mil, and kind of bridge that gap a little bit. But considering crossbows right now in their state suck, it would be a hard task to do.
I know that would suck because then it's like, oh, well, they're putting more time into more updates or more items that really don't help the end game base. But regarding the health of the game, if they do kind of bridge the gaps more and they start seeing like this is making it where players are able to tackle these harder pieces of content, well, guess what's going to end up happening? The general player base gets better, so that means we might start getting harder updates.
Yeah.
Kind of that RS3 effect because, like I said, RS3 isn't the most loved game, but there's a lot of things that they do right.
And Jagex really does, even though I am proposing these ideas, they really do try their best to bridge that making game, and they have been. So I think they still deserve the credit for the. It's just if I were to pick an order for going forward, that would be my personal. As for the wilderness ones, a lot of these are like unbalanced ones, like possibly a new prayer scroll. I think that's a terrible idea, by the way, because you would have so many complaints that they're being forced to go into the wilderness. Would it be a prayer that's only active in the wilderness? Would it be the BIS prayer? Like, yeah, no one would be happy either way when it comes to introducing BIS content into the wilderness because they're gonna feel forced.
Yeah, no one likes going into the wilderness and feeling forced because, oh look, there's this mage cape, that's BIS. But to get it, you have to get PK'd.
Yeah, although no one's in there, so it's fine right now. But still, of course,
Yeah.
if they get to a state where people want to go in there and PK, then yeah. And then as for the hard mode Inferno, that one was very exciting. I really liked that they wanted to make it more fast paced. I personally, when I was learning the Inferno, I dreaded waves 1 through 40 because they were very boring. So I'm very happy that they were trying to make it fast paced. As for the kind of rewards they want to introduce, I don't know if they should continue going on to melee because there's really not much they can buffer melee at this point based on release dates. Torva released recently. Blood Fury's is a pretty good upgrade, like a side grade at least to Torture. Ferocious Gloves are very good. Boots would be the first one I would aim for, but then you're kind of devaluing Cerberus slightly depending how you approach it. Of course, it really depends how you approach it. Would it be another upgrade to Primordials? Rings just recently got a spec one, but you can theoretically do, I think, a buff to like Brimstone Ring or Berserker Ring to make it better. And then Blessings. I don't think they should touch any of the armors, amulets, or capes as of now. I don't think cape needs another side grade. And obviously, I don't think it should look blue. I think blue would be very out of place with what we currently have. Looks like we're currently doing like a red theme when it comes with amulets, boots, and capes. So I think they should keep that going for a bit.
I think it'd be kind of fine if they made like the BIS stuff kind of look similar to their respective skills, if that makes sense. Melee kind of has that red tint, range has the green tint, and mage has the blue tint. Or blue, purple, like like different shades of those colors.
I say keep it as that, yeah, for now. I really like that clarity that Melee's red. I personally like it a lot.
They could easily do something like that, like for in the future if they start adding more and more gear, they can probably have something that follows that kind of color scheme.
And they proposed it would be untradeable, and I would personally love that too. It's a trial. I think untradeable would be good. It's a personal thing. You can't sell it. Of course, you're gonna have like cape sellers and whatnot, but that's like a like a rule breaking thing that you shouldn't really.
I mean, that's for the anti-cheat department to deal with, even though people have been selling capes and nothing has gotten done.
And then they wanted a potentially consumable item to provide more consistent money. One of the ideas I saw proposed was a cooler vial that you can put your potions into. So basically, like revisit barbarian potions and actually make it worth it. Like a vial that you can carry 5 doses of a potion into, but then it breaks no matter what you do to it. You can't reuse the vial.
You mean like flasks?
Sort of, yeah. But 5 doses, by the way, that would be very extremely imbalanced considering you would get 25% more. So you might want to approach that better than that.
If they're going to do something like that, I feel like there really needs to be more content that requires it. Otherwise, all you're doing is just making everything easier.
Really easy, yeah.
So maybe in the future when we're at the point where we have raids that are harder, but I don't think we're gonna see that in the next couple of years, to be honest.
Yeah, they probably don't want to do anything too drastic yet. I mean, one of the fantasies I always like to play with is can I just get like an extra inventory slot? I'm just saying, no, but that would obviously be too overpowered. Those are things that are actually not really good. And then pets, I'm okay with pets being on a skill locked too, rather than drop rate locked. Kind of like what they did for like transmogs in TOA.
Dude, that was so good. That was fantastic what they
I,
did, and I hope they continue
I
with it.
I hope that idea stays. I
Yeah.
really do. I want, and if the pet would also be skill locked, that would be cool too. Yeah, that's pretty much it. When it comes to that stuff, did I already go over all the invocation ideas I had for
You
208?
did? Yeah, you did.
Let me see what else I have here. I do have some small ones if you want to hear them, I guess, before we close out.
Well, there was gonna be one more question I'd ask, and that would just be
Sure.
like, in general, what you'd like to see regarding future content, or just like what do you want to see in the future of old school RuneScape?
Future of old school RuneScape. Just in general, content, combat, I guess anything.
Pretty much anything, I guess. Like, generally, it's like people like seeing PvM updates, but in general, what do you think would be beneficial for the health of the game?
I think beneficial Jagex needs to take some time to think about how they're gonna word a way of how they feel about everything. Because right now it seems like they're very out of touch with what the players want, how the players are taking feedback, and they're not. The transparency of the things they're putting out isn't good enough that it's gonna make people happy. Although I'm very happy with how they wanted the sign. I'm very happy with the new polling process and that they're not wasting dev time talking to the players making stuff before it gets declined.
Yeah,
That
because that
stuff
happened way too often.
yeah. I'm in my opinion that was a little ridiculous how they were developing stuff that might not even make it in because and considering how RS3 went, you need to really know how it's going to go with the player base before you can proceed. So
100%.
that's why they should, in my opinion, put out stances how they feel about it and ask the player what do they think about this. Are they okay with mid-level players making less money? Are they okay with making mostly content to bridge the skill gap that current players have? Let's say a tobber and a non-tobber have right now. What are they going to do to address the fact that the combat system is not? Hold on. Sorry about that. My
No, it's completely
parents
fine. It's completely fine.
just came home and are arguing about Costco stuff. It's funny. The fact that the tick system is actually not very intuitive if you're not watching guides on YouTube. Should it be something that you start to address going forward into the game if you want to make combat your main focus? And then skilling stuff, are they going to make skilling stuff more tick related? I'm very happy with how they're approaching skilling. So I would, in terms of Guardians of the Rift and stuff like that coming out. So I think they should continue what they're doing for skilling. But when it comes to combat and the mid game progression, they should really talk to players about what their current ideas of what is their acceptable level of high to low level discrepancy.
Yeah.
And then you can start finally making either mid game with that idea or late game with that idea.
I feel like right now, pretty much to make a lot of money, it's just rushing into content that is designed for end game players.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a good thing, because if you're in budget, then you're not going to make that much money. So I like CG in the sense that you could get into it, and the only thing that mattered there was stats, and stats aren't necessarily the hardest thing to kind of train up. It takes some time, but you don't need the gear, and you can still make a good amount of money.
Right now, the best way to make money as a low-level player is quite literally to get good, so you can go in with lower stats than recommended.
Yeah,
that really is the best way to make money right now. It's like, well, if I was really good at Nightmare, or let's say Nightmare was still 20 mil an hour, if I was really good at it, I can go in there with a Dragon Mace, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I can go into CG with 70s if I just bought Rigor off the market or whatever.
Yeah.
But the fact that you have to grind to 90s to be at the recommended level, it does kind of sting for people because they don't want to do that grind yet.
Yeah. I think with CG too, the Trident doesn't scale off of your magic level, if I recall correctly.
Oh, does it not? I actually don't know how the Trident works. I just thought it was a regular one.
I think it doesn't, but someone could correct me if I'm wrong. I just feel like it wasn't the case, and that makes it not too bad of a weapon to use. I think accuracy, of course, with magic level will go up, but that just means that you can go for augury and then try to do 5-1. So built-in max it. Okay, so Seabet just confirmed it for me. Thank you, Seabet.
Maybe a more advanced combat tutorial to introduce what a tick is,
Ugh.
would be the first start for Jaggies to probably, if they want to, start amping their game up for the mid-level player so they can get their feet wet a little bit.
Yeah, because there's like not a lot of people understand how the game works. Now, I'm not trying to say I understand it because I don't. Okay, there's some people that have an even stronger understanding of different things. Like, oh yeah, so the reason why this works is because this number goes to this and this number goes to that. And I'm just like, huh? How did you figure this out? But I
When
mean,
I
in terms of
when I
timing,
first got
though.
into RuneScape and I was watching Automology's guide for efficiently fishing, I was like, do I know what a tick is? Do I look like I know what a tick is, Automology?
Yeah.
And I had to learn from scratch, and not many people are going to go to YouTube for their first guides for RuneScape. So
Yeah, it's like
they
people
should put that in the game.
don't really understand ticks, and that is actually a very good point. To have something in the game that kind of gives you a general idea of some of these core concepts that we high level players just know at the snap of a finger, right? Like
Yeah.
we breathe ticks. This game is a rhythm game. We dance to fucking 0.6 seconds, bro.
And then I watch my friends and they're playing this game like it's League of Legends. Right click, right
Yeah,
click, right click. I was like, whoa,
exactly.
whoa, whoa, relax, relax.
I mean,
Check what you're
I'm
doing.
not gonna lie. Sometimes I right click a lot because my ADHD, but that's it. So yeah, that might actually be a good point, is having something to kind of introduce people to learning some of these things, because that might encourage them to try to get better if they understand it, versus having all these very complex guides that might not really make sense because it's gonna assume people know what a tick is.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think the combat still has a lot of room to grow and make it more fun for late game players.
Yeah.
So as much as people want to say that RS3 did a good job of like expanding that, I don't think they have even gotten close to what old school has the potential to go for. So I'm excited that they can still definitely breathe in some room into the combat that we have right now and future going forward.
All right. Is there anything else that you'd like to add on to that, sir?
Yes, I did have some invocation ideas that I saw here on my phone that I actually didn't go over previously.
All right.
Just as some ideas. First one, boulders. Instead of making them faster, why don't you have them move at varying speeds?
Oh no.
So boulders 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One could be faster, one could be slower. That way, they're not all lined up together. That way, a player can snake their way through the boulders. If you know what I mean. If one's going really slow, one's going really fast, you simply let the faster one go by you, and then you go around it. That would be a good movement thing you could do. People who are adept at movement tile skipping, they can make that work even better. They can skip, like do an L through the boulders. As I said before, 3 slams for the shadow slam instead of just making it wider, like left, right, and middle. Make the mechanic that you can share the boulders with baboons a little bit cooler. You can make it so that maybe it's a 3x3, so a little bit more forgiving to start. Make the baboons stay still a little bit longer. And why don't you make it so that perhaps sharing a boulder with a baboon reduces the damage by 100%, and the sharing with a rock instead is only by 50% damage reduction. That can be one. This one was a little bit more of a meme one that I wanted to bring it forward. What if, so you know how Kefri throws his dung in a straight line?
Yeah.
What if the fireballs were a straight line and then the dungs were a 3x3?
Oh my god.
That could be pretty cool. You can find a way to make that work. You could trap something a little bit more interestingly that way. And then, of course, at Warden, that would be hellfire, a straight line coming straight at you, like from like a diagonal direction. That could be cool.
God, that sounds like chaos, especially if you're in a team. Oh my goodness.
I was thinking those are just my ideas for like fun invocations. Melee. This one I call Melee Madness. The swarms for Kefri fly slower, 2 to 3 times slower, in fact. But you can't blowpipe them. They protect range and mage now, so you have to melee them. So now you have to run around Kefri like a madman, killing these swarms.
That's actually good. That's actually a really good one.
And then this one was more of my Din's propaganda one, but it's called Excellent. Yes, I did use the pun eggs. But what if one of the eggs was really big, right? And instead of popping into an agile swarm, it popped into an overlord. So either you kill the egg, or you ignore it and not have to deal with an overlord.
It's actually,
the overlord.
Oh man, I would love if they did that. I don't know why they didn't add more overlords for the fight. That would be a really good way of doing it.
That would be a good way of killing more overlords.
Yeah.
And then, of course, if you have a dint, you just dint spec it and it explodes.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've seen
that'd be
that.
really cool. Because that was my one gripe is that they have all these cool NPCs and I feel like they kind of use them limited. Like they could have had it in Baba, right? Why don't they take the
Mhm.
monkeys from the room before and throw that in the Baba encounter? Maybe as an invocation.
Yes. You mean the Nihilicus are basically coming at you while you're. Well, I always
Yo,
call them Nihilicus. That's how I see
can
the
you
Reynold.
imagine you have to deal with a boulder mechanic and then you have a baboomer coming at you too? Oh,
A volatile one, or the Venom
oh
one,
yeah.
just making the room annoying while you're dodging boulders.
Dude, see, it would just make the fight more chaotic. Maybe people would be annoyed by it, but it'd be really funny.
Yeah. And then Zabak, my ideas start getting a little bit more limited with Zabak because Zabak's kind of a boring boss already. But one of them was something called reflective skin. What if for 3 seconds you see Zabak do this cool animation where he like reels coils and his scales get like super armor and instead you cannot damage him. If you damage him, he recoils all that damage back after 3 seconds. So if everybody just starts T-bowing him and shouting about watching what Zabak's actually doing, because let's pay attention. It's real. You're not paying attention to Zabak. You're
Yeah.
paying attention to what's coming out. It's just, oh, it's a boulder, it's a jug, pray magic, pray range. You're not paying attention to Zabak himself. So what if when he coils back and stops attacking, you have to stop attacking? Otherwise, he'll just wipe the whole raid possibly.
So the only tweak I'd make on that regard, maybe have it where it prays against it or it kind of recoils one style to make
Yeah,
you
that'd be good.
swap.
That
And
would be cool.
if to reward you for paying attention, like one, you're not taking damage, and two,
Hmm.
it takes less damage from the other style.
That would be a great idea, yeah.
So I think that's an
And
actually excellent idea.
another one was, why don't we have the good old classic arena removal, but let's make it a little bit more interesting, not just the back. Make the arena a donut. It slams the tail. It has a really cool tail if you haven't seen it. It's its own NPC. It's very big.
Yeah, I seen
What if
it.
it slams the tail on the floor, makes the arena a donut? Now you have to roll these jugs in some. Of course, you're gonna have to alter the jugs so you can't like make an unsolvable way. But now you have to like roll these jugs. Now, I wasn't really excited about thinking about the jugs personally. I was thinking about how are you gonna dodge the waves in a donut arena? Because now you have to run all the way around to get to a good solution, or you could sit there and you're like 2 tiles remaining. Um, of course, that invocation would be optional. Do not make that default. None of my ideas do not make these default. These are ideas for invocations you add on to make raids harder.
It would
And
make the
then,
fight a little bit more interesting too, because having to pay attention to those
yeah.
things would be something else.
And then this is one I really wanted because this is one I made with the idea of it gets into Warden and changes how Zabak changes in Warden. It's called delayed combos. Zabak doesn't do anything for 5, 6, 10 seconds, whatever. And then it does 3 attacks back to back to back really fast, 1 or 2 takes apart. So it holds everything for one really big burst. So when you're at Warden, you have to like, okay, I can't just follow this pattern of
Oh
move.
no!
I have to find a time to sit still and then go range, magic, range really fast, and
That's
then go back to
actually
doing like.
fucked.
And that one is like, okay, so you're rewarded. You get a break for 10 seconds, but then you have to stress the hell out for like 1 second.
Yeah, like how do you deal with that with insanity? Because it's 3 ticks, and oh man, that's
And then that was one of my. And then Akka, I think is pretty cool as it is. Um, but for keepback, can Akka just get an animation before you get keepbacked? That's it. Because the melee damage doesn't come out with any animation right now. You just take it. That's the main one I want.
it could have like a phantom or something, like have like a magic red phantom hit you or something
Yeah.
like that, or some
Some
sort of
sort.
animation because there is no animation.
The simplest one would be his shield just glows red for a tick.
Ooh,
That's it. That would be the simplest one in my opinion. His shield just glows red for a single tick. Huge visual clarity. You would know exactly that tick is a dangerous one. And
yeah.
then this is like a skill invocation I was thinking of. Shadows protect the prayer that Akka is vulnerable to, but have 25% less HP. So you can't just shadow everything.
Oh, so you have to. Ooh, that's actually pretty good.
So yeah, so if Akka is vulnerable to mage, the shadows are all praying mage. So you have to use the other 2 styles. But they have 25% less because the Fang and the Blowpipe have less DPS in the Shadow.
Yeah.
To make up for it.
I think that'd be fair. I think that'd be really fair.
Oh yeah, I just saw someone in chat say the little crocs could start munching at you.
So have those come out of the water and just start beating your ass.
Yeah, you gotta start freezing them and running away.
I would love to see that. If they have the ones in the last room, those things are fucking scary. They can hit you so hard. They hit 27s on me and I died very fast. It was of course for a lab experiment video. I didn't actually die to them. You know, it was an experiment.
Okay, those are all the ideas I currently have for TOA. I hope some of them were good. My favorite one was mostly the Kefri ones with the eggs, but
yeah, I think some of those ones were very, very interesting. It really adds more variety to the fights.
I want every room to be pure chaos. So that it's funny as hell when you're doing it. When you're teaching a learner, you're like, all right, but now you have to actually do the eggs.
Yeah, see, it's like you don't have to have it like that, but now you have that option so that fights really get varied. Even then, I feel like Kefri by itself is kind of an interesting fight. It's very reminiscent of Zarpus, but it's still I still kind of like that encounter. But yeah, I think with some of those, it really spices up the fights a bit more.
The Zarpus Real mechanic could be added on somewhere in there in one of those rooms. Like Kefri starts facing you, and then you can't attack it.
Yeah.
That room is designed perfectly for that. And then you lock yourself out of like 1 or 2 quadrants, and now you're doomed. But I digress.
All right. Is that anything else on your mind, Mr. Reynold?
No. I hope for the best for you, of course, and for old school RuneScape. I really hope that we are able to make this game the best that it can be. I think it has so much room to grow because I'm bored as hell right now.
Me too, man. I mean, I'm still playing it just because I don't really have much else to do. So it is what it is. But anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed episode number 6. The man himself, Mr. Reynold. I do have a command with his social. The only social I had written down was his YouTube. But if you haven't seen his YouTube channel, please check it out. It's got a lot of useful guides and educational stuff, especially on TOA. Mr. Reynold, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was a pleasure talking to you, sir.
Thank you for having me. Take care, man.
All right, so before we wrap it up, as always, we do need to announce who the next guest is going to be. So this one is someone that a lot of people probably know from OzTob. So that is one thing. He is someone who knows a little bit too much about the game, having been a participant in high-risk TOB and doing some, sitting at the barrier while people are starting P1. His name is Jinami. So that will be the next guest we're going to have. I'm going to be talking to him, and I'm going to set a date for that. So other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, that is it for today's podcast. All right. I will now end the recording.